In the morning, my new wife texted me, "Plans changed. You're not coming to the graduation ceremony. My daughter wants her real dad." By noon, I canceled the payments, sold the house, and left town. When they came back, the text came at 7:42 a.m. I know the exact time because I was standing in the kitchen of the house. I'd bought our house. I kept calling it, though the deed said only my name, holding a coffee mug that said "World's Best Bonus Dad" in cheerful blue letters. Sarah had given it to me last Father's Day with a hand-drawn card that read, "You're more real than real." I'd kept that card in my office drawer, the way some men keep old love letters or military medals, evidence of something I thought was true. The phone buzzed on the granite countertop, the same countertop I'd insisted on upgrading when we moved in, even though it pushed us over budget, because Elena said it would make the kitchen feel more like home. I remember thinking that was beautiful, the way she said home. Like it was something we were building together, brick by brick, decision by decision. The way some people talk about home as if it's a place you create rather than a place you find. I picked up the phone, expecting logistics. Elena had left early that morning for last-minute preparations, kissing my forehead in that absent way people do when their minds are already 3 hours ahead. Caitlin's graduation was at 2 o'clock. I'd taken the day off work a Friday in late May when the weather had finally decided to cooperate. Blue skies and temperatures that made you believe in new beginnings. I'd pressed my suit the night before, bought new shoes that still felt stiff in all the wrong places, and wrapped the gift I'd been planning for months. A vintage Leica camera Caitlin had mentioned exactly once, 7 months ago, in passing, during a dinner conversation about art school applications. If you've ever loved someone's child as if they were your own, you know that feeling, that desperate, tender attention to detail, the way you catalog their dreams like precious artifacts, the way you memorize their offhand comments and turn them into evidence that you belong in their story. The text was from Elena. "Plans changed. You're not coming to the graduation ceremony. Caitlin wants her real dad there. She doesn't want it to be awkward. I'm sorry. We'll talk later." I read it 3 times. Then I set the phone down very carefully, the way you might set down something fragile that you're afraid might explode. My hands didn't shake. That surprised me. I thought hands were supposed to shake during moments like this, during the moments when your entire understanding of your place in the world shifts 6 inches to the left and suddenly nothing lines up anymore. I looked at the coffee mug. "World's Best Bonus Dad." The word bonus suddenly seemed like exactly what it was. Conditional, supplementary, optional, an addition that could be subtracted whenever the math changed. Let me tell you about Real Dad. Real Dad Richard had left when Caitlin was 4 years old. Left isn't even the right word. Abandoned is more accurate. He'd taken a job in Seattle with promises to send money, to visit on holidays, to maintain some thread of connection. The money came sporadically, in guilt-motivated bursts that dried up after 6 months. The visits became phone calls, and the phone calls became birthday texts that arrived 3 days late with increasingly generic messages. "Happy birthday, kiddo. Growing up so fast." As if she were a stranger whose growth surprised him rather than his daughter whose childhood he'd willingly missed. I'd met Elena 2 years ago at a community art show. She was there with Caitlin, who was 15 then, and angry in that specific way teenagers get when they're trying to protect themselves from disappointment. Elena had been single for 8 years. 8 years of doing everything alone. Parent-teacher conferences, dance recitals, emergency room visits for sprained ankles and stomach flus, late-night homework panic sessions, college application essays. First, heartbreaks. The accumulated exhaustion of single parenthood had carved itself into the lines around her eyes, beautiful and terrible all at once. We'd started talking because Caitlin was lingering in front of a photograph I'd taken, a series on abandoned buildings being reclaimed by nature. She'd asked intelligent questions about composition and light. I'd answered carefully, aware that I was being tested by this sharp-eyed teenager who seemed to have a highly calibrated bullshit detector. Elena had joined us, and something about the 3 of us standing there, talking about art and decay and renewal, had felt right, like pieces fitting together naturally rather than being forced. I'd been careful. God, I'd been so careful. I'd waited 4 months before I even met Caitlin officially, letting Elena set the pace. I'd attended school events from the back row, never pushing, never claiming space that wasn't offered. I'd learned her favorite foods, her anxiety triggers, her sense of humor. I'd driven her to SAT prep at 7 in the morning without complaint. I'd sat through 3 seasons of a television show I couldn't stand because it was her favorite, and she'd occasionally explain the plot to me like I was a friendly but confused alien learning about human culture. I'd done everything right. That's what I kept thinking, standing in that kitchen with the text message still glowing on my phone screen. I'd done everything right, and it hadn't mattered, because real Dad had suddenly decided he wanted to attend graduation. Richard had texted Elena 2 weeks ago, his first real communication in 6 months. He was going to be in town. He wanted to see Caitlin graduate. He'd love to take them both to dinner afterward. Maybe they could reconnect as a family. Elena had told me this carefully, watching my face the way you watch someone's face when you're delivering news you know will hurt. She'd assured me it didn't change anything. Richard could come to the ceremony, there would be plenty of seats, and then he'd leave, and life would go back to normal. Caitlin had been non-committal, teenage neutral in that way that could mean anything. I'd said all the right things. Of course, he's her father. She should have that relationship if she wants it. I'm not threatened. I'd believed my own performance. The coffee had gone cold in the mug. I poured it down the sink and watched the dark liquid spiral down the drain. Then I did what I always do when I need to think clearly. I made a list. I opened my laptop, the same laptop where I'd been drafting a speech for the graduation party we'd planned for tomorrow, 40 people in our backyard, catered food, a slideshow of Caitlin's childhood photos that Elena and I had spent 3 evenings assembling, and I opened a new document. Financial analysis, I typed at the top. If you've ever been the person who pays for everything while being told you're not family, you understand the particular rage that comes from being reduced to a wallet. It's not about the money. It's never really about the money. It's about the sudden clarity of seeing exactly how you've been categorized. The house, purchased 8 months ago, $680,000, mortgage in my name alone, because Elena's credit had been destroyed by Richard's debts from years ago. Down payment, $136,000 from my savings. Monthly payment, $3,200, which I paid in full every month. Property taxes, $8,500 annually, my account. Home insurance, $2,100 annually, my account. I kept typing. Caitlin's car, $18,000. Purchased, used 6 months ago. Registered in my name. Insured under my policy. Monthly insurance, $190. I'd given her the keys with a speech about responsibility and freedom that I'd practiced in my head for days. College fund. I'd been contributing $1,000 monthly for the past 18 months to the account Elena had set up years ago. Total contribution, $18,000. The account was in Elena and Caitlin's names. I was just the deposit machine. Private SAT tutor, $3,600 over 6 months. Art supplies for portfolio, conservatively $800. College application fees, $1,200. Therapy. Elena had started therapy 8 months ago, dealing with anxiety and past trauma, $180 per session, weekly. I'd insisted on paying because I wanted her to be healthy, because I loved her, because I thought we were building something permanent. Total approximately $6,480. Family vacation to California last summer. $8,200 for the 3 of us. Disneyland. The beach house in Santa Barbara. That dinner at the expensive seafood place where Caitlin had gotten dressed up and looked so grown up I'd felt my throat tighten. The engagement ring sitting in the box in my sock drawer, purchased 3 weeks ago, waiting for the right moment after graduation. $12,000. I did the math. Then I did it again. In 2 years, I'd invested approximately $214,870 in our life together. Not counting the 1,000 small expenses, groceries, utilities, streaming services, the stuff you don't track because you're not keeping score, because you're family, because that's what you do when you love people. The number sat on the screen like an accusation. I wasn't angry yet. That would come later, in waves, in the middle of the night when my brain wouldn't let me sleep. Right then, I was just very, very clear. The kind of clarity that comes when someone accidentally tells you the truth about how they see you. You're not coming to the graduation ceremony. Not, Richard wants to come too. Can we figure this out? Not Caitlin's feeling conflicted. Let's talk about it. Just, you're not coming. Like I was an acquaintance who'd been accidentally over-invited. Like 2 years could be erased with a text message sent while I was holding a coffee mug that called me Dad. I looked around the kitchen. The kitchen I'd renovated. The house I'd bought. The life I'd funded. I had been so careful not to be the kind of man who uses money as leverage. I'd never wanted Elena to feel bought, or obligated, or trapped. I'd wanted us to be partners, equals, a team. I'd wanted the money to be invisible, just the practical foundation that let us build something beautiful. But here's what I'd learned in that moment, standing in that kitchen with cold coffee bitter on my tongue. When you make your financial contribution invisible, it becomes easy for people to forget it exists. When you don't keep score, other people assume the score is 0. I closed the laptop. Then I made a phone call. Marcus, I said when he picked up. It's David. I need you to put the house on the market today. Marcus, my real estate agent, the same one who'd helped me find this place, barely hesitated. Everything okay? Everything's fine, I said. The lie came easily. Plans changed. I'm relocating for work. I need a quick sale. Price it to move. David, you've been there less than a year. You'll lose money on, I know. Do it anyway. After Marcus, I called my financial advisor, then my lawyer, then my bank. I had always been organized, methodical. People called it boring. Elena used to tease me about my spreadsheets, my labeled filing systems, my emergency preparedness. Now that boring, methodical nature was a weapon, and I was loading it carefully. By 10 a.m., the pieces were in motion. By 11, I'd started packing. I worked systematically, room by room, separating my possessions from theirs. The process was surprisingly simple. Most of the furniture was mine, purchased before we met. Most of the decoration was hers. The line was cleaner than I'd expected. 2 years, and we'd maintained mostly separate material lives while pretending we were merged. At noon, I was in my office when my phone rang. Elena. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Not out of spite. I needed the time to steady my voice. David, she said, and I could hear the tears in her throat. Please don't be angry. I know this is hard, but I'm not angry, I said. And I wasn't. Not yet. I was something colder and more dangerous than angry. I was certain. It's just for the ceremony. You can come to the party tomorrow, and we'll... No, I said quietly. I won't be at the party tomorrow. I won't be here at all. Silence. What do you mean? I mean I'm leaving, Elena. The house is going on the market today. I've canceled my contributions to Caitlin's college fund. The car will need to be returned to the dealership. It's in my name, and I'm terminating the insurance. I've withdrawn my portion from our joint accounts. I'm done. More silence. Then, you're being ridiculous. You're overreacting to one text message. Maybe, I agreed. Or maybe I'm finally reacting appropriately to 2 years of being treated like an ATM with occasional boyfriend privileges. That's not fair. You're right, I said. What would be fair? Should I come stand in the back of the graduation ceremony? Should I watch real dad sit in the front row? The front row I earned by paying for 2 years of her life? Should I smile through that? David. Tell me something, Elena. When were you going to tell me? This morning? Last night? Or were you just going to let me show up at the ceremony and figure it out when there wasn't a seat for me? She was crying now. She's 17. She's confused. Her father suddenly showed up and you chose him. You chose the man who abandoned you both, who's been absent for 13 years, who contributed nothing. You chose him over me. That's fine. That's your right. But I'm also choosing. I'm choosing to leave before I invest another dollar, another hour, another piece of my heart in people who see me as optional. What about us? Her voice cracked. What about our relationship? What relationship? I asked. The one where I pay for everything and get disinvited from important events via text message? That relationship? You're being cruel. No, I said. I'm being clear. Maybe for the first time. I hung up before she could respond. Then I went back to packing. By 2 p.m., exactly when the graduation ceremony was starting, I was loading boxes into my truck. The sun was warm on my shoulders. Somewhere across town, Caitlin was walking across a stage in the cap and gown I'd paid for. Somewhere, Richard was taking photos and probably crying, playing the part of proud father with the ease of someone who'd never done the actual work. And I was here, dismantling the life I'd built, piece by careful piece. I wasn't sad yet. That would come later. Right then, I was just efficient, methodical, boring. By sunset, I was gone. The hotel room was generic in that specific way. All hotel rooms are generic, beige walls, abstract art that meant nothing, a bed with too many pillows, a desk bolted to the wall as if guests regularly tried to steal furniture. I'd checked into the Marriott on the outskirts of town, far enough that I wouldn't accidentally run into anyone I knew, close enough that I could handle the logistics of dismantling a life without adding hours of driving to the equation. I sat on that bed and stared at my phone. 17 missed calls from Elena, 23 text messages. The previews showed an evolution from confusion to panic to anger to something that might have been remorse but could also have been strategic recalculation. Please call me back. David, we need to talk about this like adults. You're scaring me. This is insane. Over one ceremony? Caitlin is crying. She didn't mean to hurt you. The realtor called. You actually listed the house? David, please. Where are you? I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I opened my laptop and continued working. If you've ever had to methodically extract yourself from someone else's life while they're actively trying to pull you back in, you know that silence is the most powerful tool you have. Every response is a negotiation. Every explanation is an opening for manipulation. So I gave them nothing but the sound of my absence, and I let that silence do the work I couldn't trust my voice to do. The house had 3 showings scheduled for tomorrow, Saturday. Marcus had sounded stressed when he called to confirm. David, I'm listing this at $650,000 to move it fast. You're going to take a significant loss given what you paid and the transaction costs. I understand, I'd said. Are you sure about this? Maybe you should take a few days. Think it through. I'm sure. I was taking a $30,000 loss on the house, minimum. The math was simple and brutal, but I'd done a different calculation, one that mattered more. How much would it cost me to stay? How much more would I invest in people who saw me as expendable? How much of my soul would I trade for the privilege of being called bonus dad in a coffee mug while being excluded from the actual family? Some losses are worth taking. The car situation was more complicated. Caitlin's car, the Honda Civic I'd bought and registered in my name, was technically mine. I could repossess it. The thought of her losing the car gave me a savage sort of satisfaction that I wasn't proud of, followed immediately by a wave of something that felt too much like guilt. She was 17. She hadn't asked for any of this. She was a kid caught between her mother's choices and her father's sudden reappearance and my presence in her life that had apparently always been more fragile than I'd understood. But then I remembered the text message. My real dad. And the guilt evaporated like water on hot pavement. I drafted an email to the insurance company, canceling the policy effective in 30 days. That would give her time to transfer the title and get her own insurance, or to return the car to me, or to figure out whatever alternative arrangement Elena could cobble together. I wasn't trying to destroy them. I was just refusing to continue paying for my own irrelevance. There's a difference. By 9 p.m., my phone was ringing again, different number. I didn't recognize it, which meant someone had borrowed someone else's phone, trying to catch me off guard. I let it go to voicemail. Then I listened to the voicemail, because I'm not actually strong enough to not listen. It was Caitlin. David, it's me. I'm using my friend's phone, because you're not answering my mom. I need you to know that I didn't mean for this to happen. I didn't know she was going to tell you not to come. I just said I wanted my dad there, and she took it the wrong way. And now everything is crazy, and Mom is freaking out and saying you sold the house? That can't be true, right? Please, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean. Her voice broke. Then the message ended. I sat there holding the phone, and for the first time since the morning, I felt something crack in the certainty I'd been wielding like armor. She sounded young. 17 is both an adult and a child, depending on the moment and the lighting. In that voicemail, she sounded like a child who'd made a mistake and couldn't understand why the consequences were so enormous. But here's what I'd learned, slowly and painfully, over 2 years. Good intentions don't erase impact. Caitlin hadn't meant to hurt me, maybe, but she had hurt me. And more importantly, Elena had made a choice. Elena, who was 36 years old, who'd been through a marriage and a divorce and 8 years of single parenting, who'd told me she loved me exactly 4 times. I'd counted, because I was that pathetic, had decided that the man who'd abandoned her daughter was more important than the man who'd been there. That wasn't Caitlin's fault. But it also wasn't my responsibility to fix. I didn't call back. Instead, I ordered room service, a burger I barely tasted, and continued working through my list. Saturday morning. The showing started at 10 a.m. Marcus texted me updates. First showing. Family with 3 kids. Love the kitchen. Concerned about the price. Second showing. Couple relocating for work. Very interested. Asking about closing timeline. Third showing. Investors. Cash buyers. Want to move fast. By noon, I had 2 offers. One for $645,000. One for $640,000 cash with a 3-week closing. I took the cash offer without negotiation. Marcus sounded simultaneously relieved and bewildered. David, the other offer was higher. I want it done. Take the cash. You're leaving almost $5,000 on the table. Marcus, take the offer, please. He took the offer. While the paperwork was being processed, I drove to my bank. I'd called ahead, so they were expecting me. The branch manager, a woman named Patricia, who'd helped me set up accounts when I moved to town, looked at me with carefully professional concern. Mr. Chen, you're closing several accounts today? Just the joint accounts. And I'm withdrawing my contributions to the college fund. She pulled up the accounts on her computer. The joint checking account with Elena Whitmore shows a balance of $8,240. You're entitled to half, which would be, I want my deposits back, I said quietly. I can show you the transfer records. Every deposit into that account came from my personal account. I want that verified, and I want that amount. Patricia's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes, recognition maybe, or sympathy. She'd probably seen this before. She knew what it looked like when relationships ended, and people suddenly needed to quantify love in spreadsheets and bank statements. That will take a few hours to verify. I'll wait. I waited. The college fund was easier. I'd been making direct transfers of $1,000 monthly for 18 months. The total was $18,000, sitting in an account Elena and Caitlin controlled. I had no legal right to that money once it was deposited, but I requested a full accounting anyway. Sometimes you need to see the numbers written out officially. Sometimes you need the bank to confirm that yes, you gave $18,000 to fund the future of someone who now refers to you as not real. Patricia printed everything out for me. Every transaction, every date, every amount. The paper felt heavy in my hands. Mr. Chen, she said carefully, I'm required to ask, is everything all right? These kinds of sudden financial changes, sometimes they're indicators of, I'm fine, I said. I'm just correcting an accounting error. She didn't look convinced, but she processed the withdrawals. By 3 p.m., I was $26,240 richer and significantly more alone. Saturday evening. My phone had stopped ringing, which was somehow worse than when it had been ringing constantly. The silence suggested either acceptance or strategy. I assumed strategy. I was right. At 7 p.m., there was a knock on my hotel room door. I looked through the peephole and saw Elena standing in the hallway. And my first thought was, how did she find me? My second thought was that I'd used the hotel card for room service, and I'd told Marcus I needed a place to stay while the sale went through, and Marcus probably mentioned the Marriott, and Elena had always been resourceful when she needed to be. I didn't open the door. David, I know you're in there. Your truck is in the parking lot. Please, just talk to me. I stood there, 3 feet and 1 door away from a woman I'd imagined marrying, and said nothing. David, please, we can fix this. I made a mistake. I handled it wrong. But you're blowing up our entire life over one mistake. That's not fair. That's not who you are. That's not who you are. As if she knew. As if 2 years had given her complete access to my character, even as she'd somehow missed noticing that her definition of our life was actually my investment in your life. I'm sorry, she said, and her voice cracked. I'm so sorry. I should have talked to you. I should have made Caitlin understand that you're part of this family. I know I hurt you, but David, please don't do this. Don't throw away everything we've built. Everything we've built. The phrase hung in the air like smoke. I almost opened the door. Almost. Because part of me, the part that had bought a coffee mug and wrapped a camera and planned a graduation party, wanted to believe that this was fixable, that her apology was real. That we could rewind to Friday morning and start over with better communication and clearer boundaries. But then I remembered standing in the kitchen, reading that text. The casual cruelty of it. The assumption that I would simply accept being excluded. The lack of any acknowledgement that maybe, just maybe, being told you're not real enough to attend a graduation you'd funded might be devastating. She hadn't thought about my feelings until those feelings had consequences. That's what this really was. She wasn't sorry she'd hurt me. She was sorry I'd reacted. David, the house is under contract, Marcus told me. You're really doing this. You're really leaving. I heard her slide down the door, sitting in the hallway. I heard her crying soft, broken sounds that reached through the walls. I love you, she said. I know I don't say it enough. I know I'm bad at showing it. But I do. I love you. And Caitlin loves you. She's devastated. She locked herself in her room after the ceremony. She won't talk to anyone. Richard tried to take us to dinner, and she refused to go. She just kept saying she'd ruined everything. Part of me felt vindicated. A larger part felt sick. Please, Elena whispered. Please just talk to me. Tell me what I need to do to fix this. I wanted to open the door and tell her. You needed to choose me. Just once. Just one time. You needed to put me first. You needed to see me as real. But I didn't. Because I knew what would happen. We'd talk. She'd cry more. I'd soften. We'd compromise. I'd agree to come back, to attend the party, to pretend that everything was fine. And then, 6 months, or a year, or 5 years from now, something else would happen. Richard would show up again, or some other crisis would occur. And I'd discover, again, that my place in their life was conditional, negotiable, subject to revision, without notice. So I stayed silent. After 20 minutes, she left. I listened to her footsteps recede down the hallway. I listened to the elevator ding. I listened to my own breathing in the quiet room. Then I poured myself a scotch from the minibar, $8 for 2 ounces of mediocre whiskey, and sat down to finish my work. The spreadsheet. I'd been keeping records, not intentionally, at first. I'm just the kind of person who tracks expenses, who saves receipts, who reconciles bank statements monthly. But over the past 2 years, that habit had created an accidental archive of my investment in Elena and Caitlin's life. I spent Saturday night compiling it into a single document, not because I planned to send it to anyone, not because I thought it would change anything, but because I needed to see it. I needed the validation of knowing that I wasn't crazy, wasn't overreacting, wasn't being petty. The final number, including the house down payment, mortgage payments, car insurance, college fund, tutoring, therapy, vacations, and 1,000 smaller expenses, came to $237,450. $237,450 invested in a relationship where I was bonus dad, where I could be uninvited to major life events via text message, where my presence was appreciated but not essential, welcomed but not necessary. I stared at the number for a long time. Then I did something I'd learned to do in therapy years ago, before I'd met Elena. I asked myself the hard question. Was I angry about the money? Or was I using the money as evidence of something deeper? The truth was both. The money mattered, because the money was tangible. The money was proof. You can't gaslight someone about bank transfers. You can't tell someone they're overreacting when there's a spreadsheet showing $237,450 in direct investment. The money gave weight to the feeling I'd had for months but couldn't quite articulate, that I was giving everything and receiving crumbs. But the money also didn't matter at all. If Elena had made 50 cents an hour and contributed nothing financially but had made me feel valued, chosen, real, I would have stayed. I would have funded everything gladly. The problem wasn't the money. The problem was that she'd taken the money and still hadn't seen me. I saved the spreadsheet, backed it up. Then I closed the laptop and tried to sleep. Sunday morning, I woke to 6 new voicemails. I listened to them in order. The first was from Caitlin again, using yet another borrowed phone. David, please. I know you're mad at my mom, but I'm the one who screwed up. I'm the one who said I wanted my dad there. I didn't mean without you. I didn't mean instead of you. I just meant I thought there was room for both of you. Please, don't punish us for my mistake. Us. She'd said us, as if she and Elena were a unit I was punishing, as if I was the villain here. The second voicemail was from Elena's sister, Karen, who I'd met exactly 3 times. David, Elena called me. Look, I don't know what happened, but she's a mess. Whatever you're upset about, I'm sure you two can work it out. She's a good person. She's been through a lot. Maybe cut her some slack? The assumption that I hadn't cut her slack. The assumption that I was the unreasonable one. The third voicemail was silent, except for breathing, and then a hang-up. The fourth was Elena again. David, the party is today. People are asking about you. I don't know what to tell them. Please, please just come. We can talk after. I'll do whatever you want. We'll go to couples therapy. We'll set new boundaries. Whatever you need. Just, please don't do this. The fifth was from Marcus. Hey, David. The buyers are pushing for a 2-week close instead of 3 weeks. They're offering to cover some of your closing costs to make it happen. Call me back. The sixth was Caitlin again. This time she wasn't crying. She sounded angry. You know what? Fine. Leave. Richard left, and now you're leaving. I guess that's just what men do. I thought you were different, but I guess I was wrong. I hope you're happy. I listened to that last message 3 times. Then I called Marcus back. Take the 2-week close. Whatever they're offering for costs, accept it. I want this done. You got it. I hung up, took a shower, got dressed, and started driving, but not toward the party. I was done explaining, done defending, done begging to be seen. I pointed my truck west and started driving toward the coast, toward a town I'd never been to, toward a life that didn't include coffee mugs and graduation ceremonies and women who said they loved you, but only when it was convenient. The party would happen without me. The guests would ask questions. Elena would make excuses, or tell the truth, or some version in between. Caitlin would blow out candles on a cake I'd paid for, and maybe think of me, or maybe not. And I would be 300 miles away, starting over. Again, I drove for 6 hours before I stopped thinking in complete sentences. Before that, my mind had been a courtroom prosecution, defense, cross-examination, appeals. Every mile marker was another argument I should have made, another thing I should have said when Elena was crying in the hotel hallway. Every exit sign was a potential turning back point that I forced myself to pass. But somewhere around hour 6, when the landscape had shifted from familiar suburbs to unfamiliar pine forests, when the radio had cycled through the same rotation of songs twice and I'd stopped really hearing them, something in me went quiet. Not peaceful, not resolved, just quiet. If you've ever run away from your own life, you know that feeling That strange hollow space where the adrenaline of leaving meets the reality of being left. Where you're not who you were anymore, but you haven't figured out who you're becoming. I pulled into a rest stop somewhere in the mountains. The sign said Scenic Overlook, which turned out to be accurate. You could see layers of ridges extending toward the horizon, each one lighter blue than the last, fading into sky. There were a few other cars in the lot, a family with young kids running circles around their parents, an elderly couple sharing a thermos of something, holding hands, a trucker sleeping in his cab with the windows cracked. Normal people doing normal things. None of them had recently burned down their entire life over a text message. I sat on a bench and finally checked my phone. 43 new messages. I didn't read them. Instead, I opened a browser and did something I'd been avoiding for 2 years. I looked up Richard Whitmore. It's strange, isn't it? How you can spend 2 years in someone's life, 2 years helping to raise their child, 2 years sleeping beside them and making plans and building routines, and never once think to Google the ghost who haunts your relationship. I'd known the broad strokes deadbeat dad, moved to Seattle, barely stayed in touch, but I'd never investigated. Never wondered who he actually was beyond Elena's narrative of abandonment and Caitlin's careful silence whenever his name came up. I wondered now. Richard Whitmore had a LinkedIn profile. Of course he did. Everyone has a LinkedIn profile, even people who abandon their families. The photo showed a man in his early 40s, handsome in that generic way. Some men are handsome, good jaw, confident smile. The kind of face that looks like it belongs on a real estate billboard or a motivational speaking circuit. Current position: Senior Vice President, Tech Venture Dynamics. Location: Seattle, Washington. I scrolled through his work history. 10 years at Tech Venture. Before that, various positions at various companies, none lasting more than 2 years. The pattern was there, if you knew how to look. The restless ambition of someone always chasing the next thing, always convinced the grass is greener in the next pasture. I found his Facebook next, privacy settings loose enough that I could see his life. Photos of hiking trips, craft breweries, a boat that might have been his or might have been borrowed for the photo op. Pictures with people tagged as colleagues, friends. No mention of a daughter, no mention of a family back home. His relationship status said single. 13 years ago, he'd left Elena and 4-year-old Caitlin. According to social media, he'd simply erased them from his narrative, started over, become someone new, someone unencumbered by child support payments and parental responsibility, someone free. I kept scrolling, feeling sick. Then I found the photo album from 2 weeks ago. Quick trip home, the caption read. A series of pictures. Richard at a coffee shop. Richard at a bar. Richard at what looked like a networking event. And then, 3 photos in, Richard with Caitlin. They were at a restaurant I recognized, one of the trendy places downtown with exposed brick and Edison bulbs. Caitlin was smiling, genuinely smiling. Not the careful, polite smile she wore in most photos. Richard had his arm around her shoulders. The caption read, "Reconnecting with my amazing daughter. So proud of the young woman she's becoming. Can't wait for graduation. Number proud dad, number family." The post had 63 likes and 14 comments, all variations of beautiful and she looks just like you and so glad you're back in her life. I stared at that photo for a long time. Number proud dad. He'd been absent for 13 years. 13 years of missed birthdays, missed school plays, missed sick days and bad dreams and first days of school and scraped knees and friendship drama and every single small and large moment that makes up a childhood. 13 years of Elena doing it alone while he built his career and his boat photo lifestyle in Seattle. And now he was number proud dad. 2 weeks. He'd been back in town for 2 weeks, and somehow that was enough to erase me from Caitlin's graduation ceremony. 2 weeks of dinner dates and reconnecting was worth more than 2 years of daily presence. I understood then, in a way I hadn't fully understood before, what I was competing against. I wasn't competing against Richard the person. I was competing against Richard the fantasy. The prodigal father. The redemption narrative. The story Caitlin had probably told herself for years, that someday her dad would come back, would realize what he'd lost, would choose her. How could I compete with that? I was just the guy who'd been there. The steady one. The reliable one. The one who paid for things, and showed up on time and never promised anything I couldn't deliver. I was real, which meant I was flawed and human, and sometimes boring. Richard was a story. Stories always win. I closed the browser and sat there on that bench, watching the mountains fade into evening light. Sunday evening. I found a motel in a town called Pine Ridge, population 8,400, 2 hours from the coast. It was the kind of place people pass through on their way to somewhere else. One main street with a diner, a hardware store, a grocery store with a faded sign, a bar called the Timber Lounge that looked like it had been there since 1952. The motel was called Mountain View Inn, and the view was indeed of mountains. Though calling it an inn was generous, but it was clean and cheap, and the woman at the front desk didn't ask questions when I paid cash for a week, so it was perfect. I carried my suitcases into room 12 and sat on a bed that sagged in the middle and smelled like industrial detergent and old cigarette smoke that no amount of no smoking policies could fully erase. Then I opened my laptop and read the messages. Not all of them. I wasn't strong enough for all of them, but I read enough. Elena had sent a long message around 3 p.m. right when the party would have been starting. David, I don't know if you're reading these, but I need to say this anyway. The party is happening. People are here. Everyone is asking about you. I told them you had a family emergency. I don't know what else to say. I don't know how to explain to 40 people that you left because of a text message. Because that's what everyone will think, that you're being dramatic, petty, ridiculous. And maybe you are. Maybe I am too. Maybe we're both wrong here. But David, I need you to understand something. I've been alone for so long. 8 years of being alone. 8 years of making every decision by myself, carrying every burden by myself, being strong when I wanted to fall apart because Caitlin needed me to be strong. And then you came along, and for the first time in almost a decade, I felt like I could breathe, like someone was there to catch me if I fell. I got comfortable. I got complacent. I stopped treating you like someone I was trying to win, and started treating you like someone I'd already won. I stopped saying I love you. I stopped showing gratitude. I let you pay for everything because you offered, and I was tired, and it was easier. I let you become invisible in all the ways that mattered, while keeping you visible in all the ways that were convenient for me. That was wrong. I see that now. I'm sorry. But David, running away isn't the answer. Selling our house, your house, I know, it's your house, isn't the answer. Cutting off Caitlin's car insurance isn't the answer. These are nuclear options, and I don't understand why you jump straight to nuclear. Call me, please. Let's talk like adults. I read it twice. The message was good. It was self-aware. It acknowledged real things. If I'd read it on Friday morning, before any of this started, I would have been moved by it. But I'd read Richard's Facebook posts. I'd seen number proud dad, and I couldn't help but notice what Elena's message didn't say. It didn't say, "You're right. I should have chosen you." It didn't say, "I should have told Richard he could come to graduation, but you're my partner and you come first." It didn't say, "I made a terrible mistake in how I prioritized things." Instead, it said, "I'm sorry I took you for granted, but you're overreacting." There's an art to apologies that blame the person they're apologizing to. Elena had mastered it. I moved to the next message. This one, from Caitlin, sent around 5 p.m. The party sucked without you. Mom tried to pretend everything was fine, but everyone knew something was wrong. Richard left early. He said he had to catch a flight back to Seattle. He gave me a hug and said he'd stay in touch better and that we should do this more often, which is what he always says. And I realized, standing there watching him leave, that he's going to disappear again. He always does. And you're gone too. Which I guess is my fault. I don't know what I'm supposed to say. I'm sorry? I am sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. I didn't mean for you to leave. I I wanted my dad there. I've wanted him at every important thing my whole life, and he's never been there. And then suddenly he was going to be there, and I thought maybe this time would be different. Maybe he'd finally show up for me. I didn't think about you. I didn't think about how it would feel for you to not be there. I just thought about myself. That's shitty. I know that's shitty. But you left. You didn't even talk to me. You just disappeared. Just like he always does. So I guess I was right when I said you're both the same. That last line hit like a punch to the chest. I wanted to call her. I wanted to explain that I wasn't leaving her. I was leaving a situation that was destroying me. That I wasn't Richard. That my absence was different from his absence. That sometimes leaving is the only way to stop losing yourself piece by piece to people who don't see you're disappearing. But she was 17. She wouldn't understand that. Hell, I barely understood it, and I was 34 years old with a decade more life experience. I closed the laptop and walked to the bar. The Timber Lounge. The bar was exactly what I'd expected. Dark wood, neon beer signs, a pool table in the back, 6 people scattered across the space like they'd been assigned seats to maximize loneliness. The bartender was a woman in her 50s with gray-streaked hair and the look of someone who'd heard every story and believed none of them. "What can I get you?" she asked. "Whiskey." "Neat." "Whatever's good." She poured something amber into a glass. "Passing through?" "Staying for a bit." "Business or pleasure?" I almost laughed. "Neither. Exile." She nodded like that. Made perfect sense. Exile. Haven't heard that one in a while. Most people say they're finding themselves or taking a break. Exile is more honest. "I'm trying honesty," I said. "See how it works out." I drank the whiskey. It burned in exactly the right way. A man at the end of the bar, mid-60s, weathered face, flannel shirt, raised his glass in my direction. "Cheers to exile." I did that once. Came back after 3 months. Wife had changed the locks. Dog didn't recognize me, and I'd spent $4,000 I didn't have on a very mediocre fishing trip. "Did you regret it?" I asked. He thought about it. "The fishing or the exile?" "Both. The fishing, yes. The exile, no. Sometimes you need to leave to remember who you are without everyone else's expectations." The bartender refilled my glass without asking. "You look like you could use a refill. Rough day?" "Rough weekend," I said. "Left my fiancée. Well, we weren't engaged yet, but we were going to be. Sold the house, cut off the college fund for her daughter, drove 6 hours to a town I've never been to. So, yeah, rough." She didn't look shocked. Bartenders never do. "Her daughter or your daughter?" "Not mine, technically, though I paid for most of her life for the past 2 years. "Let me guess," she said. "Real dad showed up?" I stared at her. "How did you—" "Seen it before. Guy raises someone else's kid, pays for everything, does all the hard work. Then bio-dad appears for a graduation or a wedding or a holiday, gets all the credit, and the guy who actually showed up gets forgotten." She shrugged. "It's a tale as old as time." Second, marriages, step-parents, partners who aren't legally tied but might as well be. You're not the first guy to drink whiskey in my bar over this exact thing. "What happened to the other guys?" I asked. "Different outcomes. Some went back, tried to make it work. Some stayed gone. Some found someone new who appreciated them. One guy joined the Peace Corps, and last I heard was building wells in Kenya." She leaned on the bar. "Point is, there's no right answer. Just whatever you can live with." "I don't know if I can live with going back," I said. "Then don't." "I don't know if I can live with staying gone either. That's the problem." She nodded. "That's always the problem. The staying or going part is easy. It's the living with it afterward that's hard." I drank more whiskey. Then I asked the question I'd been avoiding. "Do you think I overreacted? Does it matter what I think?" "Probably not. But I'm asking anyway." She considered this. "I think people who've never had to be grateful for scraps don't understand what it's like when you finally stop eating them. They think you're overreacting because from their perspective, the scraps looked like a feast. But you're the one who knows what you were hungry for. I felt something loosen in my chest. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You're going to second-guess yourself 1,000 times over the next few weeks. You're going to wake up at 3 a.m. wondering if you made a huge mistake. You're going to see something that reminds you of them, a commercial, a song, a girl who looks like Caitlin from behind, and you're going to feel like someone carved out your chest. And you're going to have to decide, every single day, whether to stay gone or go back. You make it sound awful. It is awful. Freedom usually is, at first. We spend so much time in our cages, we forget what open sky feels like. It's disorienting, scary. Most people go back to the cage. The man in flannel raised his glass again. To open sky, and to cages we leave behind. I raised my glass. The bartender raised hers. We all drank. Monday morning. I woke up in the motel room with a hangover and a text message from Marcus. Closing is set for next Friday. Buyers want to do a walkthrough on Wednesday. Can you be there? I couldn't. I was 6 hours away, and I'd rather light myself on fire than go back to that house and walk through rooms with people who were about to own what I'd just lost. I can't be there. You have my authorization to handle it. If they need anything, they can reach out to you. Understood. We'll handle it. Then, David, you okay? Getting there. I lay in bed and made a new plan. Not a long-term plan. I wasn't ready for that. Just a today plan. A this week plan. Today, find a better place to stay than this motel. This week, find work. Something temporary. Something to fill the hours. Something to remind me that I had value beyond my wallet. Next week, figure out what comes next. It was the smallest possible plan, but it was something. I showered, dressed, and walked to the diner on Main Street. It was called Rosie's, and Rosie herself, assuming the woman behind the counter was Rosie, looked like she'd been serving coffee and pancakes since before I was born. "What can I get you, honey?" she asked. "Coffee, black, and whatever your special is." Special is meatloaf, but that's lunch. For breakfast, I recommend the Denver omelet. Sold. While I waited for my food, I pulled out my phone and did something I'd been avoiding. I looked at my bank account. The number was both bigger and smaller than I expected. Bigger because I'd withdrawn everything from the joint accounts in the college fund. Smaller because of the loss I'd taken on the house and the general hemorrhaging of money that happens when you dismantle a life. I had enough to last 6 months if I was careful. Maybe 8 if I was really careful. Longer if I found work. I'd be okay. The omelet arrived. It was perfect, fluffy, loaded with peppers and onions and ham, served with hash browns that had been cooked until they were crispy and golden. I ate slowly, tasting every bite, feeling my hangover recede. Rosie refilled my coffee. "New in town?" "Just passing through," I said. Then, correcting myself, "Actually, staying for a bit." "Business?" "Exile," I said, borrowing the word from last night. She laughed. "Exile. I like that. What are you exiling yourself from? A life that wasn't mine." She nodded like that made perfect sense. "Well, welcome to Pine Ridge. It's a good place for exile. Quiet, safe. Nobody here cares about your past as long as you're decent in the present." That sounds perfect. And maybe it was. Pine Ridge had one apartment complex, 8 units in a converted 2-story building that used to be a lumber company office. The landlord was a man named Frank who walked with a limp and asked exactly 2 questions. "Can you pay first and last month's rent?" "And you running from the law?" "Yes to the first, no to the second," I told him. Good enough. The apartment was small, 600 square feet, 1 bedroom, a kitchen that could barely fit 2 people, a living room with carpet that had seen better decades. But it had large windows that looked out at the mountains, and it was furnished with the kind of sturdy, functional furniture that suggested Frank bought everything from estate sales and didn't care about matching. "It's perfect," I said. Frank looked at me like I was insane. "It's a shitbox. It's a quiet shitbox. That's what I need right now." He handed me the keys. "Rent's due on the 1st. Trash pickup is Wednesday. Don't be loud. Don't do drugs. Don't let the place fall apart. We good?" We're good. I moved in that afternoon. It took 20 minutes to unpack everything. I'd brought 3 suitcases, a laptop, my camera equipment, a box of books. The apartment still looked empty, but it was mine. No shared decisions about furniture, no compromises about wall colors, no negotiations about whose stuff went where. Just me and 600 square feet of borrowed space. I sat on the couch and felt the weight of that freedom. It was simultaneously liberating and terrifying. Tuesday. I spent Tuesday doing nothing. Not nothing productive, actually, nothing. I sat on the couch and stared at the mountains. I made coffee and let it get cold. I started to read a book and gave up after 2 pages. I thought about turning on the TV and decided I didn't have the energy for whatever stories other people were telling. My phone sat on the kitchen counter, face down. I could feel it there, like a small black hole generating its own gravity field. 47 new messages since yesterday. I hadn't looked at any of them. If you've ever tried to go cold turkey on someone you love, you know that the withdrawal is physical. Your body remembers their patterns. Your nervous system expects certain inputs. A good morning text, a photo of something mundane, a voice asking how your day went. When those inputs stop, you feel their absence, like phantom limb pain. The messages were still coming, but I was the one who'd amputated the connection. I was the one creating the absence. Around 3 p.m., I forced myself to go outside. Not for any particular reason, just to prove I could. To prove I hadn't become one of those people who moves to a new place and then hides in their apartment for 3 months while depression calcifies around them like coral. I walked Main Street from end to end. It took 12 minutes. Pine Ridge wasn't built for tourists or ambition. It was built for logging companies and the families who worked for them, and when the logging dried up, the town had shrunk to fit the people who'd chosen to stay. What remained was honest and plain. No boutique coffee shops, no artisanal anything. No murals painted by art school graduates trying to revitalize the downtown. Just Rosie's Diner, the hardware store, the grocery store, the timber lounge, a post office, a library that was only open 3 days a week, a church, a auto repair shop, a gas station. That was it. That was the whole town. I found myself standing in front of the library. It was Tuesday, which according to the sign meant it was open from noon to 6. I went inside because I didn't know what else to do with myself. The library was one room with maybe 3,000 books. A woman in her 30s sat at the front desk reading a paperback thriller. She looked up when I entered, assessed me with the particular skill librarians have for categorizing patrons, and smiled. New in town? Is it that obvious? Pine Ridge has about 300 regular residents. I know all of them. You're not one of them. She set down her book. I'm Amy, town librarian, part-time waitress at Rosie's, and volunteer firefighter when necessary. David, I said. Town exile. Full-time ? She laughed. Exile. That's the second time I've heard that word in 2 days. Must be something in the water. She gestured around the library. Well, welcome. We don't have much, but what we have is yours. Fiction is on the left, non-fiction on the right. New arrivals are that card in the corner, and if you need anything specific, we can do interlibrary loans, though it takes a few weeks. Just browsing, I said. I wandered the stacks, running my fingers along spines. The library had that particular smell all old libraries have: paper and dust and time. I found myself in the self-help section, which was surprisingly robust for a town of 300. Books about grief, divorce, starting over, finding yourself, letting go. Someone had needed these books, maybe many someones. Maybe Pine Ridge was a town of exiles, all of us hiding in the mountains, all of us trying to figure out how to live with the choices we'd made. I pulled out a book called The Art of Starting Over and immediately put it back, too on the nose. Instead, I grabbed a novel I'd never heard of, something about a man who moves to Alaska to become a park ranger. Fiction felt safer than self-help. Fiction was about other people's problems. Amy checked it out for me with a library card she made on the spot. How long are you planning to stay? I don't know yet. That's the best kind of stay, she said. No expectations, no timeline, just being somewhere. Until you're not anymore. Have you lived here your whole life? I asked. Born here, left for college, came back after my divorce. That was 6 years ago. Thought I'd stay for a few months. Ended up staying for good. She shrugged. Turns out sometimes the place you're running from is actually the place you need to run to. Just took me 28 years to figure that out. Do you regret coming back? Some days, but most days, no. It's quiet here. Simple. People leave you alone unless you need something, and then they show up. It's not a bad way to live. I thanked her and left with my book and a library card that had my name printed on it in smudged ink. David Chen, Pine Ridge Public Library. Like I was a real resident, like I belonged here. Wednesday. The walkthrough of my house, my former house, happened at 2 p.m. Marcus sent me photos afterward with apologetic messages. They loved it. Closing still on track for Friday. The photos showed empty rooms. Elena had moved fast. The furniture I'd left behind was gone. The pictures on the walls were gone. Even the curtains were gone. The house looked like a stage set after the production had closed, just bare walls and empty spaces where life used to be. I zoomed in on the photo of the kitchen. The granite countertops I'd insisted on. The cabinets we'd chosen together, from 17 different samples. The window over the sink where Elena used to stand and watch birds at the feeder I'd installed. All of it empty. I felt nothing. That worried me more than if I'd felt sad. Shouldn't I feel sad? This was the house where I'd imagined proposing to Elena, where I'd pictured future Christmases and dinner parties and maybe, eventually, a different kind of family, one where I wasn't bonus, where I wasn't conditional. But I looked at those empty rooms and felt nothing except a vague relief that it was almost over. My phone rang. Elena. I let it go to voicemail. Then I listened to the voicemail, because apparently I was a masochist. David, I know you're not answering. I know you probably won't even listen to this, but I need you to know that I'm not giving up. I'm not accepting this. You don't get to walk away from 2 years without a real conversation. You don't get to just disappear. Her voice cracked. There was a long pause. I could hear her breathing, gathering herself. The house is empty. I moved everything out yesterday. I didn't want the new owners to see our life in boxes, so I got rid of most of it, donated it, sold it. I kept some photos, some of Caitlin's things, but everything else is gone. Another pause. It feels like you died. That's what this feels like. Like you died and I'm sorting through your things and trying to figure out how to tell people that you're not coming back. Except you didn't die. You chose to leave. And somehow that's worse. I closed my eyes. Caitlin starts therapy tomorrow. I found a counselor who specializes in abandonment issues, because apparently that's what we're calling this. Abandonment. Her dad left. Now you left. She's 17 years old, and she's learning that the men in her life are temporary. The accusation in her voice was sharp enough to draw blood. I hope you're happy, David. I hope wherever you are, whatever you're doing, it was worth it. I hope your pride and your hurt feelings and your need to prove a point were worth destroying a teenage girl's sense of stability. The message ended. I sat there holding the phone, feeling the accusation settle into my chest like a stone. Was she right? Had I destroyed Caitlin's sense of stability? Or had I simply refused to continue providing a false stability? The kind where I stayed and pretended everything was fine while being treated as expendable. I didn't know. I called Marcus back. The closing on Friday. I don't need to be there, right? No, we can do everything via email and digital signature. You'll never have to see the house again if you don't want to. I don't want to. Understood. After I hung up, I made a decision. I opened my phone's messaging app and typed out a single message to Elena. I'm not abandoning Caitlin. I'm refusing to be a placeholder for men who don't show up. There's a difference. I hope therapy helps her. I genuinely do. But I can't be the person who teaches her that it's okay to treat people as optional. I hit send before I could reconsider. 3 minutes later, my phone rang again. Elena. I didn't answer. Thursday. I found work at the hardware store. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't even interesting. But the owner, a man in his 60s named Ed, who'd bought the place from his father and would probably leave it to his son, needed someone to help with inventory and customer service, and I needed something to do with my hands that wasn't checking my phone. "You know anything about hardware?" Ed asked during what I guess qualified as an interview. "I can learn. Good enough. Pay is $15 an hour, 25 hours a week. Hours are flexible. Show up, work hard, don't steal anything. Deal." Do. I started immediately. Ed showed me the inventory system, which was written in a composition notebook with entries dating back to 1987. "Computer system broke 3 years ago," he explained. "Never got around to fixing it. This works fine." He taught me where everything was: nails, screws, washers, sandpaper, paint, brushes, tools. The store was organized according to a logic only Ed understood, which meant customers frequently asked for help finding things that were 3 feet away from them but hidden behind other things. It was oddly peaceful. People came in with problems: a leaky faucet, a broken fence, a door that wouldn't close properly, and I helped them find solutions. Simple, concrete problems with simple, concrete solutions. No emotional complexity. No one asking me to be someone I wasn't. During a lull around 2 p.m., Ed brought me coffee from Rosie's. "You settling in okay?" "Yeah, thanks for the job." "Thanks for taking it. Hard to find help around here. Most young people leave as soon as they can. The ones who stay are usually running from something." He looked at me. "Or someone." "Someone," I admitted. "Wife?" "Almost wife." He nodded. "I did that once. Almost married a woman who wanted me to be someone I wasn't. Spent 3 years trying to fit into her vision of who I should be. Finally realized I was disappearing." He sipped his coffee. "Left 2 weeks before the wedding. Worst and best decision I ever made." "Any regrets? About leaving?" "No." "About how I left?" "Some. I should have been clearer earlier. Should have spoken up when I first felt myself disappearing, instead of waiting until I was almost gone." He looked at me. "You speak up?" "Not enough. Not until the end." "Well, you spoke up eventually. That counts for something." A customer came in looking for a specific type of bolt. I helped him find it, made the sale, and felt something that might have been pride. It was small and stupid, but it was real. I'd solved a problem. I'd been useful. Friday. The house sold. Marcus sent me the confirmation at 3 p.m. "Closed successfully. Proceeds will be wired to your account within 3 business days. Congratulations on the sale." Congratulations. As if selling a house you'd lived in for less than a year at a significant loss because your relationship imploded was something to celebrate. But I understood what he meant. It was done. That chapter was closed. Whatever happened next would happen in a different house, in a different town, with different people. I was free. I celebrated by going to the Timber Lounge and ordering the same whiskey I'd had on my first night. The bartender, I'd learned her name was Susan, remembered me. "How's exile treating you?" "Better. Got a job. Got an apartment. Haven't cried in public yet." "That's progress." She poured the whiskey. "The crying comes later, usually around week 3. That's when the adrenaline wears off and reality sets in." "Looking forward to it," I said dryly. The man in flannel was there again. He raised his glass. "To week 1. To week 1, I echoed. I drank the whiskey slowly, letting it burn away the edges of the day. My phone buzzed. I ignored it. It buzzed again. I ignored it again. On the 3rd buzz, Susan looked at me. "You going to get that?" "No." Good man. But curiosity, or masochism, got the better of me. I checked the messages. The first was from Elena. "The house sold." I saw the notice. So that's it then. 2 years, gone. Like we never existed. The second was from Caitlin. "Mom told me about the house. I drove by there today. I sat in the driveway for like an hour. Remember when we painted my room? You let me pick that stupid purple color even though you hated it. You spent a whole weekend painting it perfect. That room is gone now. Someone else lives there. Someone else is going to paint over that purple." The third was from a number I didn't recognize. "David, this is Richard. Elena gave me your number. Look, I know you don't want to hear from me, but I need you to understand something. I didn't come back to mess up your life. I came back because Caitlin is my daughter and I've missed too much already. I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to show up. That doesn't make you less important. There's room for both of us in her life. I read Richard's message 3 times. Then I typed a response. Richard, here's what you need to understand. You don't get credit for showing up after 13 years. You don't get to swoop in for a graduation ceremony and call yourself a father. You don't get to tell me there's room for both of us when you're the reason I got uninvited. And you definitely don't get to lecture me about importance when you've been absent for most of her life. I was there. I paid for her life. I drove her to school. I sat through her panic attacks before tests. I taught her to change a tire. I listened to her talk about boys and friends and fears and dreams. I did the work you didn't do. And then you showed up, and suddenly I was the one who wasn't real. So no, Richard, there's not room for both of us. Because she chose you, her mother chose you, and I'm choosing to not compete for space in a family that doesn't see me as family. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I deleted it. Instead, I typed, "I'm not interested in having this conversation," and I blocked his number. Then I blocked Elena's number. Then I blocked Caitlin's number. I sat there in the bar, holding my phone, feeling the weight of what I'd just done. I'd cut the last threads. I'd made it final. There was no more checking messages, no more reading their words, no more staying connected to their version of events. I was alone. Completely, totally alone. Susan refilled my glass without asking. That looked like a big decision. It was. Feel better or worse? I don't know yet. That's the right answer, she said. The big decisions never feel clear right away. You have to live with them for a while before you know if they were right. I raised my glass. To living with it, to living with it, she echoed. I drank. The whiskey tasted like consequence and freedom, all mixed together, impossible to separate. Outside, the sun was setting behind the mountains. The sky was orange and purple and gold, the kind of sunset people take photos of and then can never quite capture the beauty of. I didn't take a photo. I just sat there and watched it fade. Saturday morning, I woke up with a hangover and a sense of finality. The blocks I'd put in place last night were still there. Elena, Caitlin, Richard, all of them unreachable. I'd built a wall, and now I was standing on one side of it, and they were on the other. I made coffee, ate toast, opened the novel Amy had recommended. The main character was a man who'd moved to Alaska to escape a failed marriage. He spent his days hiking and his nights reading. And slowly, page by page, he started to remember who he was before his wife had convinced him he was someone else. It was too on the nose, but I kept reading anyway. Around noon, there was a knock on my door. I opened it, expecting Frank or maybe a package delivery. It was Amy from the library. "Hi," she said. "Sorry to just show up. Susan from the bar told me what happened last night, about the blocking, about the closure. She was worried about you." "I'm fine," I said, automatically. That's what everyone says when they're not fine. She held up a paper bag. "I brought sandwiches from Rosie's, and I thought maybe you could use some company. Someone who doesn't know your story and won't ask about it." I looked at her, this woman I'd met 3 days ago, who'd driven to my apartment with sandwiches because the bartender had been worried and felt something crack in my chest. "I'd like that," I said. She smiled. "Good, because I already paid for the sandwiches and I can't eat both of them by myself." We sat on my balcony, a generous term for the small concrete platform outside my apartment door, and ate sandwiches and talked about nothing important. The weather, the library, the fact that Pine Ridge used to have a movie theater but it closed in 1994. She didn't ask about Elena or Caitlin or why I'd left. She just sat there, existing in the same space, making the silence less heavy. It was the kindest thing anyone had done for me in a long time. 3 weeks into exile, I stopped checking my blocked messages. I know that sounds like progress, but it's not what you think. I didn't stop because I was healed or over it, or because I'd achieved some Zen state of acceptance. I stopped because I'd been checking them obsessively, opening the blocked folder, reading every message Elena and Caitlin had sent to the void, letting their words tear open wounds I was trying to let close. The messages had followed a predictable arc. Week 1. Anger and accusations. You're being childish. You're overreacting. This is cruel. Week 2. Bargaining and justification. If you just let me explain, if you just understood what I was dealing with, if you just came back, we could fix this. Week 3. Grief that looked like manipulation. Caitlin isn't eating. Caitlin failed a test. Caitlin said she wishes she'd never met you, because at least then losing you wouldn't hurt. That last one had almost broken me. Almost. But I'd learned something in 3 weeks. Other people's pain is not your responsibility to fix, especially when they're the ones who caused your pain in the first place. Especially when their pain is designed to make you feel guilty enough to come back and resume your role as the person who absorbs everything and asks for nothing. So I stopped checking. I let the messages pile up unread. And slowly, carefully, I started building something new. The routine. If you've ever had to reconstruct yourself from scratch, you know that routine is both prison and salvation. You need structure to keep from drowning, but too much structure and you're just going through motions, not actually living. I found a balance. Mornings. Coffee on my small balcony. Watching the mountains catch light. The way the sun hit the peaks was different every day, sometimes gold, sometimes pink, sometimes that particular shade of orange that makes you believe in beauty even when everything else feels broken. I'd bought a cheap notebook from the grocery store, and I'd started writing. Not about Elena or Caitlin. Not about what had happened. Just observations. Small things. The way frost forms on the railing in geometric patterns. The sound of Frank's dog barking at 6 a.m. like clockwork. The particular silence of a town this small, not absence of sound, but sound that doesn't mean anything urgent. Work at Ed's hardware store from 10 to 3, 5 days a week. I'd learned the inventory system, mastered the art of finding obscure items buried in Ed's organizational chaos, and developed relationships with the regulars. There was Mr. Peterson, who came in every Tuesday for light bulbs he probably didn't need, but bought anyway because his wife had died 2 years ago and he was lonely. There was Maria, who was renovating her late mother's house and asked detailed questions about paint finishes and wood stains with the intensity of someone trying to honor memory through precision. There was Kyle, a contractor who told terrible jokes and always bought me coffee when he stopped in. These people didn't know my story. They knew David, the guy who worked at the hardware store, who was helpful and competent and quiet. That was enough. That was everything. Evenings. I'd started hiking. Pine Ridge was surrounded by trails, old logging roads mostly, overgrown and beautiful in their abandonment. I'd take my camera and walk for hours, photographing things that wouldn't make sense to anyone else. Tree bark patterns, moss on rocks, light through leaves, the way water moved in small streams. Photography had always been my meditation, the way some people have prayer or running or cooking. Through a lens, the world made sense. Composition, light, shadow, color. These were problems with solutions. These were challenges I could master. Nights. Amy had started coming over twice a week. We'd established a routine. She'd bring dinner from Rosie's or groceries to cook, and we'd eat on my balcony or at my small kitchen table, and we'd talk about nothing and everything. Books we'd read, shows we'd watched, her divorce, which she talked about with the casual distance of someone who'd processed it thoroughly. My situation, which I talked about in vague terms, she never pushed me to clarify. The thing about small towns, she'd said one evening, is that everyone knows everyone's business, but only assholes actually ask about it directly. The rest of us wait until you're ready to share. What if I'm never ready? Then you never share, and life goes on. It was the most liberating thing anyone had said to me in months. The question. On a Thursday in my 4th week, 26 days since I'd left, I was restocking paint supplies when Ed called me to his office. His office was a small room in the back filled with paperwork and tools, and a desk that looked like it had survived a small war. "David, sit down." I sat. Ed didn't usually call me to his office. My first thought was that I'd screwed something up. miscounted inventory, or offended a customer, or broken something expensive. You're not in trouble, he said, reading my face. I want to offer you something. Okay. Full-time, 35 hours a week. Benefits. Small raise 17 an hour. Position would be assistant manager, which mostly means you'd help with ordering and you'd open the store on days I can't be here. He leaned back in his chair. You're good at this. Customers like you. You show up on time, you work hard, you don't complain. That's rare. I stared at him. Ed, I don't know how long I'm staying in Pine Ridge. I'm not asking you to sign a contract. I'm asking if you want a real job while you're here. However long here is. He pulled out a W-4 form. Think about it. Let me know by Monday. I took the form and walked back to the front of the store in a daze. A real job. Benefits. Assistant manager. 3 weeks ago, I'd been living in a house I owned, planning to propose to a woman I loved, helping to raise a teenage girl I'd thought of as family. I'd had a career in marketing, a 401k, a 5-year plan. Now I was being offered $17 an hour to manage inventory at a hardware store in a town of 300 people. And the crazy thing was, I was considering it. The letter. That night, I broke my rule about not checking the blocked messages. I don't know why. Maybe because Ed's offer had made me feel settled, and feeling settled made me brave enough to look at what I'd left behind. There were 43 new messages. I didn't read most of them, but I read one, sent 3 days ago, from Elena. David, I'm writing this even though I know you won't read it. Maybe I'm writing it for me, not for you. I need to say things out loud, even if you never hear them. I've been in therapy, individual therapy, not couples therapy, because there's no couple anymore. Dr. Morrison asked me to make a list of all the ways I took you for granted. It was supposed to be an exercise in accountability. I thought I'd write down 5 or 6 things. I filled 4 pages. 4 pages, David. 4 pages of ways I used you, dismissed you, treated you as infrastructure instead of as a person. The car you bought, Caitlin. The house you purchased. The college fund you built. The therapy you paid for. The hundreds of small moments when you showed up and I didn't acknowledge it because I'd started treating your presence as a given instead of as a gift. Dr. Morrison asked me why I did that, why I let you become invisible, and I told her the truth. Because you let me. Because you never complained. Because you were so eager to prove you belonged in our lives that you made yourself into whatever we needed. And I got comfortable with that. I got lazy. I took advantage. That's not an excuse. It's just the truth. She asked me if I loved you. I said yes. She asked me if I'd ever told you that in a way that wasn't conditional, that wasn't tied to something you'd done for us or some crisis you'd solved. I couldn't answer. I still can't answer. I think I loved what you did for us more than I loved who you were, and that's unforgivable. Caitlin is in therapy too. She's angry at everyone, at me, at you, at Richard, at herself. She says she doesn't understand how love works. How you can love someone for 2 years and then just leave. I tried to explain that you didn't just leave, that we pushed you out. She doesn't believe me. She thinks everyone leaves eventually. Richard called yesterday. He wanted to check in. He's back in Seattle, back to his life, back to forgetting we exist, except when guilt moves him to reach out. He asked if you and I had worked things out. When I said no, he said, "That's too bad." He seemed like a good guy, as if you were an acquaintance he'd met at a party, as if he had any right to have an opinion. I told him not to call anymore unless he was planning to actually be a father. He said I was being unfair. Unfair. 13 years of absence and I'm the one being unfair. I'm writing this at 3 in the morning because I can't sleep. Because every night I walk through the house, the rental house we moved into after you sold our home, and I see all the spaces where you should be. The coffee maker you bought because ours broke. The bookshelf you built for Caitlin. The photo on the wall that you took of us at the beach. I packed that photo away yesterday. Caitlin found it in the box and lost it. Screamed at me for trying to erase you. But David, how do I live in a house full of evidence of someone who's gone? How do I wake up every day and see reminders of what I destroyed? Dr. Morrison says I need to sit with the discomfort. that I need to feel the consequences of my choices instead of running from them. She says that's the only way I'll learn. So I'm sitting with it. And it's unbearable. I don't expect you to respond to this. I don't even expect you to read it. But I needed to say it anyway. I needed to tell you that I know what I lost. I know what we lost. And I know it's my fault. I hope you're okay, wherever you are. I hope you're building something better than what we had, because what we had wasn't good enough for you. I see that now. I'm sorry it took losing you for me to see it. The message ended there. I read it 3 times. Then I closed my phone and sat very still. 4 pages. She'd written 4 pages of ways she'd taken me for granted. I felt something twist in my chest, not quite satisfaction, not quite vindication, something more complicated. Relief, maybe, that she finally saw it. Grief that it took me leaving for her to see it. Anger that she could articulate it so clearly now, but couldn't see it when I was standing right in front of her. And underneath all of that, a terrible, dangerous hope that maybe this meant something, that maybe her awareness was a bridge back, that maybe... No, I stopped that thought before it could fully form. Awareness doesn't erase history. Insight doesn't undo impact. She could fill 1,000 pages with everything she'd done wrong, and it wouldn't change the fact that she'd done it. It wouldn't change the text message that had started all of this. It wouldn't change the choice she'd made to prioritize Richard's feelings over mine. Some things can't be apologized away. I deleted the message and went back to ignoring the blocked folder. The decision. Friday morning, I told Ed I'd take the job. Good man, he said, shaking my hand. Start the paperwork Monday. Welcome to permanent temporary employment. That's not a real thing, I said. It is now. That afternoon, Amy stopped by the store with coffee. I heard the news, Ed told Rosie. Rosie told Susan. Susan told me. Congratulations. The Pine Ridge Gossip Network is terrifyingly efficient, I said. Small town. Information travels at the speed of boredom. She handed me the coffee. So you're staying? For now. That's all any of us are doing. Staying for now. She leaned against the counter. There's a town council meeting Tuesday night. Riveting stuff. They're debating whether to repair the gazebo in the park or tear it down. You should come. Why would I want to watch people argue about a gazebo? Because it's hilarious. Because you'll meet more people. Because if you're going to live here, even temporarily, you might as well participate in the bizarre civic theater that is small-town politics. She grinned. Plus there's free coffee, and Linda Martinez makes these cookies that are basically diabetes in dessert form. You had me at cookies, I admitted. The gazebo debate. The town council met in the library, the only public building large enough to hold more than 10 people. About 40 residents showed up, which Amy informed me was a massive turnout. Usually it's just the council, a couple of concerned citizens, and Frank, who comes to every meeting to complain about property taxes. The meeting was exactly as ridiculous as Amy had promised. The gazebo in question had been built in 1952 and was now structurally unsound. Half the town wanted to restore it as a historical landmark. The other half wanted to tear it down and use the money for a new playground. Arguments were passionate and utterly disproportionate to the stakes. A woman named Gladys gave a 10-minute speech about her wedding anniversary photos taken in that gazebo in 1978. A man named Joe countered with a 5-minute rant about how gazebos were classist structures meant to exclude working people. I sat next to Amy, drinking terrible coffee and eating incredible cookies, and I laughed for the first time in a month. Really laughed. The kind of laughter that comes from your stomach and makes your eyes water. The kind that has nothing to do with anything being particularly funny, and everything to do with finally relaxing enough to find joy in absurdity. Amy looked at me and smiled. There it is. There what is? The laugh. I've been waiting for it. You've got a good laugh. I felt my face heat up. Thanks. The council eventually voted to restore the gazebo. Gladys burst into tears. Joe stormed out, muttering about misplaced priorities. Everyone else clapped politely and started discussing whose turn it was to organize the 4th of July barbecue. As we filed out, Amy introduced me to people. This is David. He works at Ed's. He's staying in Frank's apartments. They welcomed me with the casual acceptance small towns extend to people who show up and don't cause problems. I was given advice about the best fishing spots, warnings about the pothole on Miller Road, and an invitation to join the volunteer fire department's poker night. Walking back to my apartment, Amy said, "So? About what? That you're starting to belong here." I thought about it. Maybe. A little. That's how it starts. A little? Then one day you wake up and realize you know everyone's name and they know yours, and you have opinions about gazebos, and you've accidentally built a life. Is that what happened to you? More or less. I came back for 3 months. That was 6 years ago. Now I'm on the town council, and I have strong feelings about historical preservation. She laughed. Life sneaks up on you like that. We reached my building. Amy turned to face me. Can I ask you something personal? You can ask. I might not answer. Do you think you'll ever go back? To wherever you came from? Whoever you left behind? The question hung in the cool evening air. I could smell pine trees and wood smoke from someone's fireplace. In the distance, a dog barked. The mountains were dark shapes against a darkening sky. No, I said. I don't think so. Sure? No, but I'm learning to live with not being sure. She nodded. That's honest. I appreciate honest. After she left, I climbed the stairs to my apartment and stood on my balcony. The stars were out, more stars than I'd ever seen when I lived in the suburbs. The Milky Way was visible, a river of light across the sky. I thought about Elena's message. 4 pages of accountability, 4 pages too late. I thought about Caitlin, angry and hurt, learning that men leave. I thought about Richard, back in Seattle, probably already forgetting about the daughter he'd swooped in to see and then abandoned again. I thought about the life I'd had 4 weeks ago and the life I was building now. And I realized something. I didn't want to go back. Not because I'd stopped caring, not because the hurt had faded, but because going back would mean returning to being someone I wasn't. It would mean accepting being conditional, being bonus, being real only when it was convenient. I'd rather be alone. I'd rather work at a hardware store and attend gazebo debates and build a quiet life in a town that didn't know my history. I'd rather be no one in particular than be the wrong person in someone else's story. The package. Saturday morning. There was a package outside my door. No return address, no shipping label, just a medium-sized box with my name written on it in handwriting I recognized. Elena's handwriting. I stood there staring at it, coffee in hand, trying to decide what to do. Opening it felt dangerous, like accepting communication I'd explicitly cut off. Not opening it felt cowardly, like I was afraid of what it might contain. I compromised. I brought it inside but didn't open it. I put it on my kitchen counter and went about my day, letting it sit there like a small bomb, ticking quietly. When Amy came over that evening with Thai food, she'd driven 40 minutes to pick up from the nearest town that had a Thai restaurant. She saw the box immediately. "What's that?" "Trouble," I said. From her? I'd told Amy the broad strokes of my situation. Not the details, not the numbers, not the exact wounds, but enough that she understood I'd left a relationship that had consumed me. Yeah. Quote, "You going to open it?" "I don't know." We ate pad thai in silence. Then Amy said, "Want me to open it? I can tell you what's in it, and then you can decide if you want to actually deal with it. Would you?" "Sure. I'm nosy, and I have boundary issues. It's perfect." She opened the box carefully, like she was defusing a bomb. Inside was a letter, a thumb drive, and something wrapped in tissue paper. Amy read the letter first, her expression shifting from curious to sad to something I couldn't identify. "Well?" I asked. "You should read this one," she said quietly. "I think you need to." She handed me the letter. The letter was written on the back of pages I recognized, bank statements, printed emails, receipts. Elena had used our financial history as stationery, which felt either deeply symbolic or accidentally cruel. Maybe both. "David, I'm writing this on the documents you left behind, the ones you used to track everything you gave us. I found them in a folder on the computer, the one in your office that I packed up after you left. I wasn't snooping. I was looking for tax documents. But I found this instead. A spreadsheet. 2 years of our life. Itemized. $237,450. I sat there for 3 hours, staring at that number, cross-referencing it with our bank statements, verifying it, trying to find an error. There wasn't one. You were meticulous, as always. Every dollar accounted for. Every contribution documented. I want to be angry. I want to say you were keeping score, that love shouldn't be transactional, that reducing our relationship to a spreadsheet is cold and calculating. But I can't say any of that. Because you weren't keeping score. You were just keeping records. And the records show exactly what happened. I let you fund our entire life, while treating you like you were optional. The thumb drive contains everything I found. Your spreadsheet, my own accounting of what I contributed financially over the same period. It's embarrassingly small. Copies of the text messages between Richard and me from the week before graduation, the ones where I made the decision to exclude you. I want you to see them. I want you to see, in my own words at the time, how easily I chose him over you. You should know the truth about that week. Richard didn't just show up. He called me 6 weeks before graduation. Said he wanted to reconnect. Said he'd been in therapy. Said he was trying to make amends for his absence. And I believed him. Or I wanted to believe him. Or maybe I just wanted Caitlin to have the father I'd always wished she had. We met for coffee. Just Richard and me. He cried. Actual tears. Said leaving was the biggest mistake of his life. Said he'd been young and stupid and scared. Said he wanted to be part of Caitlin's life again, if she'd let him. If I'd let him. It felt like closure. Like healing. Like maybe the story could have a different ending than I'd accepted. Then he asked about graduation. Said he wanted to be there. And I said yes, without thinking about you. Without considering what it would mean. Without realizing that in that moment, I was choosing between the man who left and the man who stayed. And I chose wrong. The day of graduation, Caitlin and I were getting ready. She was nervous about seeing Richard. Nervous about you being there too. Nervous about navigating both relationships in the same space. And she said so quietly I almost didn't hear it. I wish it could just be Dad. Just this once. I wish it could be like we were a normal family. I should have said, we are a normal family. David is family. Your family doesn't have to look like everyone else's family. Instead, I texted you. Made the decision in 30 seconds. Prioritized her immediate emotional comfort over your 2 years of commitment. Chose the fantasy of what Richard represented over the reality of what you'd been. I told myself I was protecting Caitlin, being a good mother, putting my daughter first. But here's what I've learned in therapy. I was protecting myself. I was protecting the story I'd been telling myself for years that Richard leaving broke our family and Richard returning could fix it. I was so invested in that narrative that I couldn't see the new family we'd actually built, the one that included you. You asked me once, remember, what I was afraid of? It was late at night. You'd been living with us for 6 months, and I'd just had a panic attack about something small, something stupid. You held me and asked what I was really afraid of. I told you I was afraid of being alone again, of having to do everything by myself again, of being abandoned again. You said, I'm not going anywhere. And I believed you, or I wanted to believe you, but I never quite trusted it. I never quite let myself believe that you'd stay. So I kept you at arm's length. I took your money, but not your love. I accepted your help, but not your partnership. I let you be part of our life without ever fully letting you into our family. Because if I didn't fully let you in, it wouldn't hurt as much when you left. Except you didn't leave. I pushed you out. The wrapped item in the box is the coffee mug. World's best bonus, Dad. Caitlin kept it after you left. Kept it on her nightstand. She'd hold it sometimes when she was crying, like it was evidence of something that used to exist. Last week she threw it against her wall and shattered it. I glued it back together. It's broken, you can see all the cracks, but it's whole. I don't know why I'm sending this to you. You blocked us. You made it clear you're done. And you have every right to be done, every right to walk away and never think about us again. But I needed you to know. I see it now. I see what you gave. I see what I took. I see what we lost. And I needed you to have the evidence. All of it. Your spreadsheet and mine, the text messages, the financial records. Not so you'll feel vindicated, though I hope you do feel vindicated, because you should. But so you'll know that I finally looked at the truth. So you'll know that I'm not pretending anymore. I'm not asking you to come back. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for anything except for you to know that you were right. About all of it. You weren't bonus. You were real. I'm sorry it took losing you to see it. Elena. I read the letter twice. My hands were shaking. Amy sat across from me, silent, giving me space. The thumb drive, I said. My voice sounded strange. Did you look? No. That felt too invasive. I plugged it into my laptop. The drive contained 5 folders: David's records, Elena's records, text messages, bank statements, photographs. I opened David's records first. It was my spreadsheet, the one I'd made in the hotel room. Every expense, every contribution, every dollar documented. $237,450. Then Elena's records. Her accounting was simpler, more painful. Total financial contribution over 24 months, $8,200. Mostly groceries and utilities for months when work was slow. The house, $0. The car, $0. College fund, $0. I paid for nothing that mattered. Text messages was worse. Screenshots of conversations between Elena and Richard dated weeks before graduation. I know this is sudden, but I really want to be there for Caitlin's graduation. I've missed so much. I don't want to miss this too. Of course you should be there. She's your daughter. Will it be weird? With David there? It'll be fine. There's room for everyone. 3 days later. I've been thinking about the ceremony. About sitting there watching our daughter graduate. I know I have no right to ask this, but is there any way it could just be us? Just the 3 of us? Like old times? I know that sounds selfish. It does sound selfish. I know. I'm sorry. Forget I asked. 4 hours later, I talked to Caitlin. She said she'd feel more comfortable if it was just family at the ceremony. I think she means just us, you, me, and her. I don't know how to tell David. You don't have to tell him anything. I can skip it. I don't want to cause problems. No, you should be there. You're her father. I'll figure it out. The next message was the one she'd sent me, the one that had started everything. I closed the laptop, stood up, walked to the window, tried to breathe. David, Amy said softly. She chose him, I said. Before Caitlin even said anything, she'd already decided. Richard asked if it could just be the 3 of them, and Elena, she made it happen. She made Caitlin think it was her idea. You don't know that. I do know that. You can see it in the messages. Richard plants the idea. Elena thinks about it. Then she tells him, Caitlin wants it to be just family. But Caitlin never said that. Not in those words. Elena translated more comfortable into David shouldn't come, because that's what Richard wanted. Amy didn't argue. She just sat there, being present, while I fell apart. $237,000, I said. And she chose the man who contributed nothing, who left them, who showed up for one ceremony and then disappeared again. I laughed, but it sounded broken. I knew it. I knew it when I left. But seeing it documented, seeing the messages, seeing how easily she did it. David, sit down. You're spiraling. I sat. Amy moved next to me on the couch. She's right, I said, in the letter. She's right about everything. I was invisible. I was infrastructure. I was the foundation they built their life on, and then forgot existed. I looked at Amy. How do you do that? How do you live with someone for 2 years and not see them? I don't know, Amy said. But I know you can't control whether other people see you. You can only control whether you demand to be seen. I did demand it. By leaving. No, you demanded it by refusing to accept being invisible anymore. The leaving was just the natural consequence of them not meeting that demand. I looked at the coffee mug sitting on my counter, still wrapped in tissue paper. I couldn't bring myself to touch it. She glued it back together, I said. The mug. Caitlin shattered it, and Elena glued it back together. It's a metaphor, Amy said dryly. She's trying to tell you she knows things are broken, but they're fixable. Some things shouldn't be fixed. Some things should stay broken. Is that what you believe? I didn't answer. The photographs. Later, after Amy left, I opened the last folder on the thumb drive. Photographs. They weren't pictures I'd taken. They were pictures of me, candid shots taken over 2 years. Me cooking breakfast. Me reading on the couch. Me teaching Caitlin how to change a tire. Me painting that purple bedroom. Me at Caitlin's school play, sitting in the audience with a camera around my neck. Me asleep on the couch with a book on my chest. Hundreds of photos. Moments I hadn't known were being captured. Moments that suggested I'd been seen more than I thought. Or maybe moments that proved I'd been photographed but not noticed. There's a difference. The last photo was from graduation day, not the ceremony before. It showed the kitchen of the house I'd sold, the coffee mug sitting on the counter, the wrapped gift for Caitlin, the camera sitting next to it, my phone face down on the granite countertop. Elena must have taken it after I'd read the text. After I'd left, she'd gone to the house and photographed the evidence of my absence. The life interrupted. The gift that would never be given. I stared at that photo for a long time. Then I opened a new document and started writing. The response. Elena, I got your package. I read your letter. I looked at the thumb drive. I saw the evidence. You're right. About all of it. You took me for granted. You made me invisible. You chose Richard over me, not once, but repeatedly, in small ways and large ways, until it became the foundation of how you saw our relationship. But here's what you're wrong about. You think this is about money. You think the spreadsheet is evidence that I was keeping score, that I was tallying debits and credits. You think I'm angry because I spent $237,450 and got nothing in return. That's not it. The money is just proof. It's evidence that something invisible happened, something I couldn't articulate without numbers to back it up. The money proves that I gave everything I had, that I showed up fully, that I invested in us with every resource I possessed. And you took it all while giving back so little that you could track your entire contribution on half a page. That's not love. That's not partnership. That's not family. I don't need you to pay me back. I don't need financial restitution. I need you to understand that your realization came too late. That awareness after the fact doesn't undo impact. That seeing the truth now doesn't change the fact that you didn't see it then, when it mattered, when I was standing right in front of you being erased. You want to know what I'm angry about? Not the money. Not even the text message, really. I'm angry that you had 2 years to choose me, and you never did. 2 years to make me feel like family instead of like hired help. 2 years to say I love you without it being a response to something I'd done for you. 2 years to put me first, just once. Richard showed up for 1 week, and you gave him what you never gave me. Priority, consideration, the benefit of the doubt. You protected his feelings. You made space for his needs. You arranged Caitlin's life around his comfort. And where was that protection for me? Where was that consideration? You say you were protecting yourself, keeping me at arm's length so it wouldn't hurt when I left. But Elena, I never left. You pushed me out and then got upset when I didn't fight to stay in a place I'd been told I didn't belong. The coffee mug. World's best bonus, Dad. You sent it to me, glued back together, like it's a symbol of something that can be repaired. But I don't want it. I don't want to be bonus anymore. I don't want to be the person who's real only after they're gone. I don't want to be the person you finally see after they've disappeared. I want to be chosen first. I want to be someone's priority, not their backup plan. I want to be in a relationship where love isn't conditional on how much I give or how little I ask for, and I can't have that with you. Not because you haven't changed, maybe you have. Not because you're not sorry, I believe you are. But because I've changed. I've learned that I'd rather be alone than be invisible. I'd rather have nothing than have everything except the one thing that matters, being seen. You asked me once what I was afraid of. I told you I wasn't afraid of anything. That was a lie. I was terrified. Terrified that I wasn't enough. Terrified that no matter how much I gave, it wouldn't be enough to make you love me the way I loved you. Terrified that one day you'd realize I was just a placeholder for someone better. Turns out I was right to be terrified, because that's exactly what happened. But here's what I've learned. Being right about your fears doesn't mean you have to live in them. I can acknowledge that I wasn't enough for you, and still know that I'm enough. Period. Not enough for you, not enough for Caitlin, just enough. I'm building a life here, a quiet life, in a small town, where nobody knows I spent $237,450 on a family that didn't keep me. Where nobody knows I almost proposed to a woman who couldn't decide if I was real. Where I'm just David, the guy who works at the hardware store and laughs at gazebo debates and takes pictures of tree bark. It's not the life I planned. It's not the life I wanted, but it's mine, and it's enough. Thank you for the evidence. Thank you for finally seeing. Thank you for being honest about what happened, but I'm not coming back. I hope you and Caitlin find healing. I hope Richard actually shows up this time, though I doubt he will. I hope you learn to build relationships where you give as much as you take. I hope Caitlin learns that being left doesn't mean she's unlovable. It means the people who left weren't capable of staying. And I hope someday you understand. I didn't leave because I stopped loving you. I left because I started loving myself more. Take care of yourself, Elena. David. I read it 3 times, edited it twice, then I saved it without sending it. Because here's what I'd learned. Some letters aren't meant to be sent. Some letters are just meant to be written. Sometimes you need to articulate the truth to yourself before you can let it go. I closed the laptop, looked at the coffee mug, still wrapped in tissue paper, looked at the thumb drive, full of evidence. Then I did something that felt both cruel and necessary. I packed it all back in the box, added my unsent letter, printed and folded, sealed it up, addressed it to Elena, and I put it in my closet. Not to send. Not to keep as a shrine, just to have evidence that this happened, evidence that I'd been seen, even if it was too late, evidence that I'd told the truth, even if no one heard it. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight streaming through my window and the sound of Frank's dog barking at something, probably a squirrel. My chest felt lighter. Not healed, not okay, but lighter. I made coffee, stood on my balcony, watched the mountains catch fire with morning light. My phone buzzed. A text from Amy. Coffee and hike this morning? I found a new trail. Very mediocre views. Questionable safety standards, but good company guaranteed. I smiled and typed back. Perfect. Give me 30 minutes. As I got dressed, I caught sight of the box in my closet. The evidence, the truth, the story of what happened, documented and filed away. I could spend the rest of my life dissecting that story, analyzing what went wrong, assigning blame, calculating damages. Or I could close the closet door and go for a hike with a friend who asked for nothing except my company. I chose the hike, because here's what I was learning. You can't heal while you're still bleeding. You can't build something new while you're standing in the ruins of what you lost. You can't become who you're meant to be while you're still performing as who you were. Eventually, I'd have to open that box again. Eventually, I'd have to decide what to do with all that evidence. But not today. Today, I was going to drink mediocre coffee, hike a trail with questionable safety standards, and laugh at Amy's terrible jokes about small-town politics. Today, I was going to be just David. And that was enough. 6 weeks into exile, I'd stopped calling it temporary. Something shifted. It wasn't dramatic. There was no revelation, no moment of clarity, no sudden healing, just a gradual awareness that I'd gone 3 full days without thinking about Elena. 3 days of waking up, going to work, having dinner with Amy, taking photos of nothing important, and going to sleep without the weight of what I'd lost, pressing against my chest like a stone. 3 days. It felt both like progress and like betrayal. How could I just stop thinking about 2 years of my life? How could the absence of someone who'd consumed me become background noise? Ed noticed first. "You're whistling," he said on a Thursday morning, while I was reorganizing the screws section, a task that absolutely did not require whistling, but apparently I was doing it anyway. "Am I?" "Yeah. Take me home, country roads. You've been looping the same verse for 10 minutes. It's annoying but also kind of nice. Means you're settling in." He handed me a coffee. "You thinking about staying permanent?" The question caught me off guard. "I don't know. Maybe. That's progress." 6 weeks ago, you would have said, "Definitely not." 4 weeks ago, you would have said, "Probably not." Now you're at maybe. Give it another month, and you'll be arguing about the cest. Gazebo, like the rest of us. There's more gazebo drama? Always. Gladys wants to paint it white. The Historical Society says it should be the original dark green. There's going to be blood. He grinned. "Welcome to Pine Ridge, where nothing matters and everything matters too much." After Ed walked away, I stood there in the screws section, organized now by size and type, a small victory against chaos, and let myself think about it seriously. Staying, not just for now, not just until I figured out what came next, but actually staying, making a life here. The thought didn't terrify me the way it would have 2 weeks ago. The Crack, Part 1. That afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown number, which I normally wouldn't answer, but something made me pick up. "David Chen?" A woman's voice, professional, unfamiliar. Speaking. "This is Patricia from First National Bank. We spoke several weeks ago when you closed your accounts." My stomach dropped. "Is there a problem?" "Not exactly. I'm calling because we received a wire transfer this morning intended for your old joint account with Elena Whitmore. The account no longer exists, so the transfer bounced back to the sender. I wanted to let you know in case there's an error that needs correcting." How much was the transfer? $18,000. The note said, "College fund reimbursement." I sat down on a stack of paint cans. She's trying to pay me back? That's what it appears to be. Since the account is closed, she'll need different routing information if she wants to complete the transfer. Should I provide her with your new account details? "No," I said quickly. Then, softer, "No. Thank you. I'll handle it." After I hung up, I just sat there in the paint aisle of Ed's hardware store, trying to process what had just happened. Elena was trying to give me back the college fund money, $18,000. Money I'd contributed voluntarily. Money I'd never expected to see again. Money that had been part of my investment in Caitlin's future. She was trying to make it right, trying to undo the financial imbalance, trying to prove, what? That she'd heard me? That she understood? Or was this just guilt talking, therapy-inspired restitution that looked like accountability but was really just her trying to ease her conscience? I didn't know, and I hated that I didn't know. The Crack, Part 2. That evening, Amy and I were supposed to get dinner at Rosie's, but I texted her asking if we could skip it. She showed up at my apartment 20 minutes later with a 6-pack of beer and a bag of chips. "Talk," she said, settling onto my couch like she owned it. "Elena tried to wire me $18,000 today." Amy's eyebrows went up. "The college fund?" "Yeah." I explained about Patricia's call, about the bounce transfer, about how I now had to decide whether to give Elena my new banking information so she could complete the payment. "Do you want the money back?" Amy asked. "I don't know. Yes? No? It's not about the money. It was never about the money. Wasn't it a little bit about the money?" I opened a beer and thought about it. The money was evidence. Proof that I'd given everything and gotten nothing back. But I didn't make that spreadsheet because I wanted reimbursement. I made it because I needed to know I wasn't crazy. I needed to see that yes, the imbalance was real. The money made it real. And now she's trying to balance it. Which feels both right and wrong. Right because she should acknowledge what I gave. Wrong because You can't retroactively fix a relationship by writing a check. Amy was quiet for a moment. Can I tell you about my divorce? Please. His name was Marcus. We met in college, got married at 24, divorced at 28. Everyone said we were too young, but we thought we knew better. She opened her own beer. Marcus was a musician, a good one, really talented. But musicians don't make money, unless they're very lucky. So, I worked. I paid rent. I paid bills. I funded his dreams, while working a job I hated, because someone had to be responsible. Sounds familiar, I said quietly. One day, 3 years into our marriage, I found out he'd been sleeping with a woman he met at a gig. When I confronted him, you know what he said? He said he'd felt invisible, that I was so busy working and managing our life that I never saw him as anything except a burden I was carrying. I looked at her. That's different from, is it? He was right, David. I had made him invisible, not because I didn't love him, but because I'd stopped seeing him as a partner and started seeing him as a project, someone to manage, someone to fund, someone to fix. She drank some beer. The affair was his fault, absolutely, but the invisibility, that was on me. What happened? End quote. What? We divorced. He moved to Portland. Last I heard, he's teaching guitar and playing coffee shops. I came home to Pine Ridge to lick my wounds and figure out who I was without him. She looked at me, and about a year after the divorce, he sent me a check, $5,000. Said it was his share of what I'd paid for our life together. Said he'd been saving up, wanted to make it right. Did you cash it? No, I sent it back, because he was missing the point. The problem wasn't the money. The problem was that he'd let me carry everything while he pursued his dreams. The problem was the imbalance, not the numbers. Writing a check didn't fix that. It just made him feel better about himself. I understood what she was saying. You think that's what Elena's doing? Making herself feel better? I think Elena is trying to do the right thing. But the right thing now doesn't undo the wrong thing then. And you have to decide if accepting her restitution means reopening a door you very deliberately closed. The decision. I spent 2 days thinking about it. On Saturday, I finally responded to Patricia's message. I asked her to provide Elena with a mailing address, my P.O. box in Pine Ridge, but not my bank account information. If Elena wanted to send a check, she could send a check. I could decide what to do with it when I saw it. If I saw it, the compromise felt right. It gave her a way to follow through on her restitution without giving her direct access to my life. It maintained the boundary while acknowledging the gesture. 3 days later, a check arrived. $18,000. Made out to David Chen. The memo line said, "College fund. I'm sorry it took losing you to see what you gave." I stared at that check for a long time. Then I did something I knew was probably unhealthy but felt necessary. I called my bank and asked what happened to money in accounts when the account holder died without a will. "Are you okay, Mr. Chen?" the bank representative asked, concerned. "I'm fine. This is hypothetical." Well, hypothetically, if there's no will and no designated beneficiary, the funds would go through probate and eventually to next of kin. And if I designated a beneficiary on an account, that money would go directly to them? Yes, it bypasses probate entirely. I opened a new savings account that afternoon, deposited the $18,000, designated Caitlin Whitmore as the sole beneficiary. Then I wrote a letter to my lawyer, the same one who'd handled the house sale, with instructions to inform Caitlin of the account only if something happened to me. Otherwise, the money would just sit there, accumulating interest. Waiting. It felt right. I didn't want Elena's money, but I also didn't want to punish Caitlin for her mother's choices. So the money would exist in a liminal space, not mine, not Elena's, held in trust for a future that might never come. Amy, when I told her what I'd done, just looked at me for a long moment. That's either the most generous thing I've ever heard or the most passive-aggressive. Can't it be both? With you? Probably. The photograph. 2 weeks later, 8 weeks since I'd left, though I'd stopped counting days and started counting weeks, which felt like progress. I was on a hike when I took the photograph that changed everything. Not in a dramatic way, not in a life-altering revelation way, just in a quiet way that cracked something open that had been sealed shut. I'd been photographing patterns in tree bark, the way light filtered through pine needles, the particular texture of lichen on granite, my usual subjects, small, beautiful, overlooked things. I'd filled 3 memory cards with images that wouldn't mean anything to anyone except me, and that was fine. That was the point. But then I rounded a corner on the trail and saw it, a tree that had been struck by lightning at some point in its history. Half of it was dead, blackened and bare. The other half was alive, green and flourishing, growing around the damage like the tree had decided to just continue. I stood there for 20 minutes, taking photos from every angle. The contrast between death and life. The way the living half had adapted its shape to compensate for what was gone. The beauty in the asymmetry. When I got home and uploaded the photos, I sat there staring at them for an hour. That tree was me. Half of me was dead, the part that had loved Elena, that had wanted to be Caitlin's father, that had believed in the family we were building. That part had been struck down, burned, left for dead. But the other half was still alive, still growing, still reaching towards sunlight, even though the shape was different now, even though the growth pattern had been permanently altered. I could spend the rest of my life mourning the dead half, or I could be like the tree and just continue. The continuation. I printed the photograph, the first photo I'd printed since moving to Pine Ridge. It was a large print, 16x20, and I hung it on the wall of my apartment above the couch, where the box from Elena sat in the closet below. Amy saw it the next time she came over. "That's beautiful," she said. "When did you take this?" "Last week, up on the Miller Ridge Trail." She looked at it for a long time. "It's about you, isn't it? Is it that obvious?" "Only to someone who knows you." She turned to face me. "David, can I ask you something?" "Always. What are we doing here?" The question hung in the air between us. I knew what she was asking. We'd been having dinner 3-4 times a week, going on hikes together, spending evenings on my balcony or her porch, talking until the stars came out. She'd become the first person I thought of when something funny happened, the person whose opinion I valued, the person whose company I actively sought out. We'd been building something. I just hadn't let myself name it. "I don't know," I said honestly. "What do you want to be doing?" "I don't know either, but I think we need to figure it out." She sat down on the couch. "I like you, David. I like you a lot. You're kind, and you're funny, and you're present in a way that most people aren't. You actually listen when I talk. You remember things I tell you. You show up." "But," I prompted, "but I don't know if you're here because you want to be, or because you're running from somewhere else. I don't know if you like me, or if you like that I'm safe, that I'm uncomplicated, that I don't ask for anything you're not ready to give." Her words hit harder than I'd expected. "That's not fair, isn't it? David, you've been here for 2 months, and you still talk about it as temporary. You still have all your stuff in boxes. You haven't bought a single piece of furniture. You're living like you might leave tomorrow." "I have bought furniture," I protested weakly. "You bought a lamp. One lamp. From a yard sale. For $3. She smiled, but it was sad. "You're not committed to being here. You're not committed to building a life here. You're just pausing, waiting for something." "Waiting for what?" "I don't know. For Elena to show up? For Caitlin to apologize? For enough time to pass that going back doesn't feel like defeat? I don't know what you're waiting for, David, but I know you're waiting." I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell her she was wrong. But I looked around my apartment, the sparse furniture, the boxes still stacked in the corner, the single-framed photograph on the wall that was more about what I'd lost than what I'd found, and I couldn't. She was right. I'd been in Pine Ridge for 2 months, and I was still living like I was in exile. Still living like this was temporary. Still living like my real life was somewhere else. Paused, waiting for me to decide whether to go back to it. "I'm sorry," I said. "Don't apologize. Just figure it out. Figure out if you're here because you want to be or because you're hiding. Because, Amy, I'm not interested in being someone's distraction while they heal from someone else. You're not a distraction. Then what am I? I didn't have an answer. She stood up, and I thought she was leaving. But instead, she came and sat next to me on the couch, took my hand. I'm not saying this to hurt you. I'm saying this because I've been where you are. I've been the person who runs to a small town to hide from the wreckage of their life. And I know the difference between running away and running toward. Right now, you're running away, and that's okay. That's allowed. But eventually, you have to decide what you're running toward. What if I don't know? Then you figure it out, but you don't figure it out by staying in limbo. You don't figure it out by keeping one foot out the door. She squeezed my hand. I care about you, David, but I'm not going to fall for someone who's still in love with their past. I'm not in love with Elena, I said. Maybe not, but you're not over her either. And until you are, there's no room for anyone else. She left after that. Gently, kindly, but she left. And I sat on my couch under the photograph of the lightning-struck tree and realized she was absolutely right. The choice. That night, I pulled the box out of the closet. The one Elena had sent. The one I'd added my unsent letter to. I opened it and reread everything. The bank statements, the text messages, the photographs, Elena's letter, my response. Then I read my response again. The last line. I didn't leave because I stopped loving you. I left because I started loving myself more. It was a good line. The kind of line that sounds profound. The kind of line that implies healing and growth and healthy boundaries. But it was also a lie. I hadn't left because I loved myself more. I'd left because I was hurt and angry and needed to prove a point. I'd left because staying felt like accepting being diminished, and leaving felt like reclaiming power. But I hadn't actually healed. I'd just relocated my pain. I'd been in Pine Ridge for 2 months, and I'd built a nice little life. Job, apartment, friends, routines, all the external markers of moving on. But internally, I was still standing in that kitchen, reading that text message, feeling the world shift 6 inches to the left. Amy was right. I was in limbo. I was waiting. Not waiting for Elena to fix things. Not waiting to go back. Just waiting. Suspended between who I'd been and who I was becoming. Unable to commit to either. The tree in the photograph had been struck by lightning, and it had made a choice. Keep growing. Adapt. Continue. I'd been struck by lightning too. Now I had to decide. Was I going to spend the rest of my life as a monument to damage? Or was I going to grow? I looked at the box, at the evidence, at the documentation of everything that had happened. Then I closed it. Not to send it, not to keep it as a shrine, just to close it. Tomorrow, I would make different choices. Tomorrow, I would buy furniture. Tomorrow, I would stop living like I was temporary. Tomorrow, I would figure out what I was running toward. But tonight, I let myself grieve, really grieve. Not the performative grief of the first few weeks, not the angry grief that had fueled my leaving, but the deep, quiet grief of accepting that some things are just over. I grieved the family I'd wanted to be part of. I grieved the father I'd wanted to be to Caitlin. I grieved the future I'd imagined with Elena. And then, when the grief had run its course, when my eyes were dry and my chest felt empty, I let it go. Not perfectly, not completely, but enough. Enough to take one step forward instead of standing still. I bought a couch on a Wednesday. Not a used couch from a yard sale, not a hand-me-down from someone in town, but an actual new couch that I ordered from a furniture store 2 towns over. It was expensive, $800, which felt obscene for something to sit on, but it was mine. I chose the color dark gray, the fabric something durable and soft. The size fits 3 people, not that I had 3 people to fit on it, but the possibility felt important. The salesperson asked if I wanted it delivered or if I'd take it with me. Delivered, I said, to 412 Maple Street, apartment 3, Pine Ridge. Saying the address out loud, claiming it as mine, felt like signing a contract with the future. The couch would arrive in 2 weeks. 2 weeks felt like forever and like no time at all. 2 weeks meant I'd be here in 2 weeks. I'd still be in Pine Ridge, still be in this apartment, still be building this life. I wasn't running anymore. If you've ever made the decision to stop running, you know it's both terrifying and exhilarating. Like stepping off a moving train, you have no idea if you'll land safely or break every bone in your body. But staying on the train definitely wasn't working, so you jump and you hope. I was jumping. The furniture. After the couch, I bought other things. A bookshelf from the antique store on Main Street. Solid oak, probably 80 years old, with the kind of craftsmanship that doesn't exist anymore. A kitchen table from a woman selling her late husband's workshop equipment. Hand-built maple with joints so tight you couldn't slide paper between them. A real bed frame to replace the box spring and mattress I'd been sleeping on directly on the floor. Each purchase felt like an anchor. Heavy, permanent, real. Ed noticed the change immediately. "You're nesting," he said, watching me measure a spot in my apartment for the bookshelf during my lunch break. "I'm what?" "Nesting. It's what birds do when they decide a place is home. They stop just perching, and they start building." He handed me a level. "Make sure it's straight, or it'll drive you crazy every time you look at it." I leveled the bookshelf carefully, anchored it to the wall, and then spent an hour arranging books I'd had in boxes for 2 months. Photography books, novels, the self-help book Amy had recommended that I still hadn't finished. Seeing them on shelves instead of in cardboard made them feel real again. Like I was the kind of person who had books on shelves, who had a life organized enough to display. That evening, Amy stopped by, unannounced, the first time since our conversation about me being in limbo. She looked around the apartment, at the bookshelf, at the new kitchen table where I'd been eating breakfast that morning instead of standing at the counter like a transient, at the space where the couch would go. "You bought furniture," she said. "I bought furniture, like real furniture, not yard sale furniture, like real furniture that will be delivered and require 2 people to move and will probably outlive me." I opened the fridge. "Want a beer?" "Sure." We stood in the kitchen drinking beer, in a silence that felt different from our usual comfortable silences. This one had weight, expectation, things unsaid sitting between us like a third person. "Amy," I started. "David." She started at the same time. We both stopped. Both laughed awkward, nervous laughter that broke some of the tension. "You first," I said. She took a breath. "I'm sorry about what I said last week. About you being in limbo. About not being committed. It wasn't fair of me to put that pressure on you. You've been here 2 months. 2 months. And I'm acting like you owe me some grand declaration of permanence when you're still figuring out how to exist after having your life blown up." "You weren't wrong, though," I said. I was in limbo. I was waiting. I was living like I might leave any day. I gestured around the apartment. "This is me trying to stop waiting." "I can see that," she smiled. "The bookshelf is very permanent, very committed, very, I'm going to be here long enough to alphabetize." "They're not alphabetized. Yet. Give it a week." We both laughed, and this time it felt real. The tension eased. "I like you, Amy," I said. "I like you in a way that scares me, because I'm not sure I know how to do this right. How to be present with someone new when I'm still processing someone old. How to be fair to you when I'm still figuring out who I am without her. So don't try to do it right. Just try to do it honestly." She set down her beer. "I'm not asking you to have all the answers, David. I'm not asking you to be healed or whole or perfectly over your past. I'm just asking you to be here. Actually here. Not half here while the other half is still standing in that kitchen reading that text message. I'm trying. I know. The furniture proves it." She looked at me seriously. "But I need you to know something. I'm not interested in being your rebound. I'm not interested in being the person who helps you get over Elena so you can go find someone else. If we're doing this, whatever this is, I need to know you're doing it because you want me, not because I'm convenient or safe or available." "You're not convenient," I said. "You're terrifying. You see through all my bullshit, and you call me out on it, and you make me want to be better, which is possibly the least convenient thing in my life right now." She smiled. That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. I mean it. You scare the hell out of me. But in a good way. In a way that makes me think maybe I could actually do this. Build something real. Something that's not just me performing the role of partner, but actually being one. Can I kiss you? She asked. The question hung in the air for 3 heartbeats. Yes, I said. She kissed me. Soft at first. Tentative. Like she was asking permission with every movement. Then deeper, more certain, when I kissed her back. We stood there in my small kitchen with empty beer bottles on the new table and boxes still stacked in the corner and the ghost of Elena's letters sitting in the closet, and we kissed like 2 people who'd been waiting for permission to want something. When we pulled apart, Amy was smiling. Well, that was overdue. Very overdue, I agreed. Are we doing this then? Actually doing this? I looked around my apartment, at the evidence of permanence, at the life I was building, at this woman who'd shown up with sandwiches when I was drowning, and had been showing up ever since. Yeah, I said. I think we are. The test. 3 days later, a Saturday, the kind of perfect October day where the air smells like wood smoke and fallen leaves, I got a phone call from a number I didn't recognize, out-of-state area code. I almost didn't answer. David, this is Karen, Elena's sister. My stomach dropped. How did you get this number? From Patricia at the bank. She gave Elena a P.O. box, but Elena asked if there was a phone number, and Patricia, I think she felt bad. She gave me your number, but not Elena. I promised I'd only use it if it was an emergency. Is it an emergency? Silence. Then, Caitlin tried to kill herself. The words hit like a physical blow. I sat down hard on the floor, right where I was standing. What? 2 days ago. Pills. Elena found her in time, got her to the hospital. She's okay physically. But David, she's not okay. She keeps saying it's her fault you left. She keeps saying everyone leaves, and she ruins everything. And she just wanted it to stop. I couldn't breathe. The apartment was suddenly too small, too bright, too real. David, are you there? I'm here, I managed. Where is she now? Inpatient psychiatric facility. 72-hour hold. But they'll probably keep her longer. Elena is a wreck. Richard showed up for 1 day, said all the right things, then flew back to Seattle for work commitments. So it's just Elena, sitting in that hospital room, watching her daughter, and probably wondering where everything went wrong. Why are you calling me? I asked. Not cruelly. I genuinely wanted to know. Because Caitlin asked for you. In the hospital, when she woke up, she asked if you were there. Elena told her no, explained that you'd left, that you'd moved away. And Caitlin just shut down, hasn't spoken to Elena since. But she drew something, gave it to her therapist. It was a picture of that purple bedroom, the one you painted. I remembered that weekend. 3 coats of the most obnoxious purple paint in existence. Caitlin had been so specific about the shade, not lavender, not violet, but this particular purple that we'd had to go to 3 different stores to find. I'd spent 2 days painting while she sat on the floor doing homework and telling me about her hopes for college, about the art program she wanted to get into, about how this room felt like the first space that was really hers. Karen, I'm not asking you to come back. I'm not asking you to fix this. I'm just asking you to know. Because Elena won't tell you. She thinks she's already asked too much, taken too much. But I thought you deserved to know that this happened. That Caitlin is hurting. That maybe, if you wanted to, you could. I don't know. Send a card? Write a letter? Something to let her know she didn't ruin your life? She didn't ruin my life, I said automatically. Tell her that, not me. After Karen hung up, I sat on the floor of my apartment for an hour, maybe longer. Time felt strange, elastic, meaningless. Caitlin had tried to kill herself, 17 years old, and she'd decided the world was better without her in it. Because of me? Because I'd left? Or because of 1,000 other things, her father's abandonment, her mother's choices, her own depression and anxiety that had probably been there long before I showed up and long after I left? I didn't know, but I knew I couldn't ignore it. The letter. I called Amy. She came over immediately, found me still sitting on the floor. What happened? I told her. Everything. The phone call, Caitlin, the hospital, the purple bedroom. She sat down next to me, didn't say anything for a long time, just sat there, being present. Finally, what are you going to do? I don't know. Part of me wants to get in my truck and drive there and make sure she's okay. Part of me knows that's the worst possible thing I could do, show up like some white knight, reinforce the idea that men who leave can come back whenever it's dramatic enough. Those are both valid responses. They contradict each other. Welcome to being human. We contain multitudes of contradictions. She took my hand. What does the non-contradictory part of you want to do? I thought about it. I want her to know she didn't destroy me. I want her to know that leaving wasn't about her. I want her to know that she's allowed to make mistakes without people abandoning her forever. So tell her that. How? Write her a letter, not to Elena, to Caitlin directly. Say what you need to say, then decide whether to send it. So I wrote a letter. It took 6 hours and 14 drafts, but I finally got it right. Dear Caitlin, I heard about what happened. I need you to know something, and I need you to believe it. This is not your fault. You didn't drive me away. You didn't ruin anything. You made a mistake. You asked for your father at graduation, and your mom made decisions based on that. But Caitlin, you're 17. You're allowed to make mistakes. You're allowed to want your father in your life. You're allowed to hope that maybe this time he'd show up and stay. I left because I needed to, not because of you, because I was disappearing in a relationship that wasn't working, because I was giving everything and getting back very little, because I needed to remember who I was when I wasn't constantly trying to prove I belonged. That's not your responsibility. It was never your responsibility to make me feel like family. That was your mom's job, and mine, and we both failed at it in different ways. I want you to understand something important. When people leave your life, it's not always about you. Sometimes it's about them. Sometimes they leave because staying is slowly killing them. Sometimes they leave because they don't know any other way to save themselves. Your dad left when you were 4. That was about him, about his inability to handle responsibility, his fear, his selfishness. It had nothing to do with whether you were lovable or worthy or good enough. I left when you were 17. That was about me, about my need to be seen, my inability to keep accepting scraps, my decision to choose myself. It also had nothing to do with whether you were lovable or worthy or good enough. You are lovable. You are worthy. You are more than good enough. I need you to know that I don't regret the time we spent together. I don't regret painting your purple room, or teaching you to change a tire, or sitting through terrible movies because you love them. I don't regret buying you that camera, or helping with your college essays, or any of it. I regret how it ended. I regret that my leaving hurt you. I regret that I didn't find a way to leave the situation with your mom without leaving you too. But I don't regret knowing you. You made my life better, Caitlin. Please believe that. I'm writing this from a small town where I work at a hardware store and hike in the mountains, and I'm learning how to build a life that's mine. It's quiet here. Simple. Nobody knows my history. Nobody knows I almost proposed to your mom, or that I thought of you as my daughter, or that I kept the card you gave me on Father's Day in my desk drawer like it was made of gold. I'm healing here. Slowly. And I hope you can heal too. I hope you stay in this world, Caitlin. I hope you fight for yourself the way I had to fight for myself. I hope you learn that people leaving doesn't mean you're not worth staying for it. Just means their journey took them somewhere else. And I hope someday, when you're older and you've built your own life and made your own choices, you'll understand that loving someone doesn't always mean staying with them. Sometimes it means loving them enough to leave so they don't destroy themselves trying to be something they're not. Take care of yourself. Keep making art. Keep asking hard questions. Keep being exactly who you are. You're going to be okay. David. I read the letter to Amy. She cried, which made me cry, which was cathartic and awful in equal measure. Are you going to send it? She asked. I think I have to, even though it might complicate things, even though it might make Elena think you're coming back. I'm not doing this for Elena. I'm doing this for a 17-year-old girl who tried to die because she thought she ruined people's lives. I folded the letter. If Elena misinterprets it, that's her problem. Caitlin needs to hear this. I mailed it the next morning, sent it overnight to the psychiatric facility, marked for Caitlin Whitmore, patient mail. Then I waited. The response. 4 days later, I got a text from an unknown number. This is Caitlin. They gave me my phone back. I got your letter. Thank you. Just that. 4 sentences. But it felt like everything. I typed back. I meant every word. You're going to be okay. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, I don't know if I believe that yet, but I'm trying. That's all anyone can do. Try. Mom wants to talk to you. Can I give her your number? I stared at that message for 10 minutes. Amy was sitting next to me on the new couch that had arrived yesterday, solid, real, permanent. What are you thinking? She asked. I'm thinking that I spent 2 months building walls to keep Elena out, and now those walls are about to be tested. You don't have to say yes. I know. But I also knew that some conversations were inevitable, that you could run from them for a while, but eventually they caught up to you. That closure wasn't something that happened to you, it was something you chose. I typed back, you can give her my number. But Caitlin, this doesn't mean I'm coming back. It just means I'm willing to talk. I understand. Thank you for writing to me. Thank you for not hating me. I could never hate you. The 3 dots appeared one more time. Then, Mom says the camera you bought me for graduation is still wrapped. She saved it. She says you can have it back if you want. I thought about that camera. The vintage Leica I'd found after months of searching. The gift I'd wrapped so carefully that had been sitting on the kitchen counter when I'd left. Tell her to give it to you for your 18th birthday. It was always meant to be yours. Are you sure? Completely sure. A pause. Then, I'm sorry I called my dad, my real dad. You were more real than he ever was. I read that message 3 times. Then I closed my eyes and let myself feel the grief of it. The grief of being seen too late, of being valued only in absence, of being real only after I was gone. But I also felt something else, relief. Because Caitlin was alive, because she was trying, because she'd heard what I needed her to hear. That was enough. I didn't respond to that last message. Some things don't need responses. Some things just need to be said and received and held. That night, my phone rang. Elena, I looked at Amy. This is it. You don't have to answer. I know, but I think I need to. She kissed my forehead. I'll be right here when you're done. I answered on the 4th ring. David, Elena said, and her voice was broken in ways I'd never heard before. Thank you for the letter. Thank you for not hating us. Thank you for... Elena, I interrupted gently. We need to talk. But not tonight. Not when emotions are this raw. Let Caitlin heal. Let yourself breathe. And then, if you still want to talk, we'll talk. Okay, she whispered. Okay, David, I'm sorry. For all of it. I know you are. We'll talk soon. I hung up before the conversation could go anywhere that would undo the boundaries I'd built. Amy pulled me close. We sat on the new couch in the apartment I'd committed to, and I let myself be held. You okay? She asked. I will be, I said. And I meant it. Elena called 3 weeks later. 3 weeks of Caitlin in intensive outpatient therapy. 3 weeks of me building my life in Pine Ridge, going to work, having dinner with Amy, hiking on weekends, slowly becoming someone who belonged somewhere. 3 weeks of my phone sitting silent, except for occasional updates from Caitlin's unknown number. Feeling better today. Therapist says I'm making progress. Started sketching again. Each message was a small relief. Each one proved she was still fighting. When Elena's name appeared on my screen on a Tuesday evening, I was ready, or as ready as I'd ever be. Hi, I said. Hi. Her voice was steadier than last time. Is now okay? To talk? Now's okay. Amy squeezed my hand and moved to the kitchen, giving me space but staying close enough that I could see her if I needed the anchor of her presence. "I've been in therapy," Elena started, "twice a week. Dr. Morrison, my therapist, she's been helping me understand a lot of things. About why I made the choices I made, about how I treated you, about what I need to take responsibility for." "Okay," I said, "just that. Not helping her, not filling the silence, letting her do the work." She asked me to identify what I wanted from this conversation. She said I needed to know what I was trying to accomplish before I called you, so I thought about it. "And David, I'm not calling to ask you to come back. I'm not calling to try to fix what I broke. I'm calling to tell you that I understand now. I understand what I did, and I'm sorry." "Thank you for saying that. I need you to know Caitlin's suicide attempt wasn't your fault. It wasn't because you left. It was because of depression she's had for years that I didn't see. Because of Richard's abandonment that I minimized. Because of my own inability to create a stable home even when I had someone willing to help me build one. The therapist said Caitlin was a house with a cracked foundation, and your leaving was just the earthquake that made the damage visible." The metaphor was mixed, but I understood what she meant. "How is she?" "Better. Not good, but better. She's on medication now. She's in therapy 4 times a week. She started drawing again. She drew the purple bedroom from memory. Every detail perfect. She hung it above her bed in the hospital." Elena's voice cracked. "She loved you, David. Loves you. In the way a daughter loves a father. And I took that from both of you because I was too scared to let you be real." I felt the words land in my chest, like stones. Heavy. "True, I know," I said quietly. "The night you left after I went to your hotel room and you wouldn't open the door, I drove back to the house. Our house, your house, and I walked through every room looking for you. Your coffee mug on the counter, your jacket on the chair, your books on the shelf, and I realized you'd been everywhere. You'd been in every corner of our life, and I'd never once stopped to think about what would happen if you weren't there anymore." "Elena, let me finish, please." She took a breath. "Dr. Morrison asked me why I never told you I loved you. I said I did tell you." And she pulled out her notes. I'd been journaling, she'd been reading them, and she showed me. "In 2 years, I said I love you exactly 4 times. And every single time, it was after you'd done something for us. After you paid for something. After you fixed something. After you solved a problem. The fact that she'd counted too, that she'd noticed the same thing I had, was somehow worse than if she'd been oblivious. I loved what you did," she continued. "I didn't love who you were, and that's unforgivable." "It's not unforgivable," I said, surprising myself. "It's human. It's what happens when someone is so used to surviving alone that they forget how to be part of a team." "You survived 8 years as a single parent, Elena. You learned to see people as either obstacles or resources. I became a resource. That's not evil. It's just sad." "You're being too kind." "I'm not being kind. I'm being honest." I looked at Amy in the kitchen, pretending not to listen while absolutely listening. "I've had 3 months to think about this, to be angry, to process. And here's what I learned. You're not a villain. You're just someone who was doing the best you could with the tools you had. And your tools weren't good enough for what I needed. What did you need?" And the question sat between us like a challenge. "I needed to be chosen," I said. "Just once. I needed you to pick me over comfort, over convenience, over Richard's ghost. I needed you to introduce me as your partner, not as David. I needed you to say, 'I love you,' because you felt it, not because I'd earned it. I needed to be seen." Silence. Then, quietly, "I see you now. I know you do. But Elena, seeing me now doesn't help me then. And I can't go back to being who I was then, the person who accepted scraps and called it a feast. I can't unknow what I know now, which is that I deserve to be someone's first choice, that I deserve a relationship where love isn't conditional on performance, that I deserve to be visible even when I'm not useful. I paused. And I've found that here. In Pine Ridge, in myself. And yeah, in Pine Ridge. In my job at the hardware store. In my apartment with furniture. I actually chose, in my relationship with someone who sees me, even when I'm not doing anything except existing. You're seeing someone? It wasn't a question. I am. Are you happy? I thought about Amy. About the way she showed up with sandwiches and terrible jokes. About how she called me out when I was spiraling and celebrated when I bought a couch. About how being with her felt easy in a way that being with Elena never had. I'm getting there, I said. Good. That's good. Elena's voice was thick. David, I need to ask you something. And you can say no. You probably should say no. But I need to ask. Okay. Caitlin's 18th birthday is in 2 months. She wants you there. Not me asking her asking. She wants you to see her blow out candles on a cake, and she wants to thank you for the camera, and she wants closure, I think. Or maybe just to see you one more time. My heart started racing. Elena, I know I have no right to ask. I know you've moved on. I know this is asking you to reopen a wound you've been trying to heal. But she asked me to ask you, and I promised her I would. I closed my eyes, thought about Caitlin in a hospital bed, Caitlin drawing the purple bedroom, Caitlin saying, "You were more real than he ever was." Can I think about it? Of course, there's no pressure. Well, there's some pressure, but you don't have to say yes. You can say no, and that's okay, and we'll figure it out. Elena, I said gently, you're spiraling. I know. I do that now. Therapy is making me aware of all my patterns, and it's exhausting. Despite everything, I smiled. Keep going to therapy. Keep working on yourself. Keep being there for Caitlin. That's what matters. Will you think about the birthday? I'll think about it. Thank you. For everything. For the letter to Caitlin. For this conversation. For not hating us. I don't hate you, Elena. I just can't be with you. I know. I understand. I needed you to know that I finally see it. I see what I lost. And I'm sorry I couldn't see it when it mattered. Me too, I said. After we hung up, I sat there holding my phone. Amy came and sat next to me. Well? She asked. She wants me to go to Caitlin's 18th birthday. Do you want to go? I don't know. Part of me does. Part of me thinks it's a terrible idea. Both can be true. I'm really tired of containing contradictions, I said. Amy laughed. Welcome to the rest of your life. I leaned into her. If I go, and that's a big if, would you come with me? She pulled back to look at me. You want me to meet your ex and her daughter? I want them to see that I'm not the same person who left. I want them to see that I've built something real. And I want you there because I tried to find the words, because you make me braver than I am alone. That's either the sweetest thing you've ever said or the most codependent. Can't it be both? She kissed me. If you decide to go, I'll go with you. But David, make sure you're going for the right reasons. Make sure you're not going because you feel guilty or because you think you owe them closure. Make sure you're going because you want to. How will I know the difference? You'll know, she said. Trust yourself. You've gotten pretty good at that lately. That night, I took out the box from my closet. The one with Elena's letter. The thumb drive. The evidence. I hadn't looked at it in weeks. I opened it and added one more thing. A printed copy of my conversation notes from tonight. Documentation of Elena finally understanding. Proof that my leaving had created the space for her to see what she'd done. Then I closed the box again and put it back in the closet. Not to keep as a shrine. Not to send as evidence. Just to have. Someday, maybe I'd throw it away. Someday, maybe I'd stop needing proof that I'd been right to leave. But that day wasn't today. Today, I was just a man who'd survived an impossible conversation, who'd set boundaries and held them, who'd been kind to someone who'd hurt him without sacrificing himself in the process. Today, that was enough. Tomorrow, I'd decide about the birthday party. Tomorrow, I'd figure out if I was brave enough to go back without going back tomorrow. But tonight, I climbed into bed with Amy and let myself be held by someone who chose me first, who saw me clearly, who loved me not for what I did, but for who I was. And for the first time in 3 months, I slept without dreaming of what I'd lost. I drove back for Caitlin's 18th birthday. Amy came with me, her hand in mine for most of the 6-hour drive. We didn't talk much. There wasn't much to say that we hadn't already said a dozen times while I'd wrestled with the decision. In the end, it came down to something simple. I wanted to see Caitlin blow out her candles. I wanted her to know that people could leave and still care, that boundaries didn't mean abandonment, that you could choose yourself and still show up for others, just differently. The party was at Elena's rental house, small, just family and a few of Caitlin's friends. When we arrived, Elena answered the door. She looked older, tired, but there was something different in her eyes. Awareness, maybe. Accountability. "David, thank you for coming." She looked at Amy. "You must be Amy. Thank you for being here." Amy shook her hand. "Thanks for having us." Caitlin appeared behind Elena, thinner than I remembered, but her eyes were clearer. She was wearing a necklace with a camera charm, small, delicate, silver. "David," she said. And then she was hugging me, crying into my shoulder. "Thank you for coming. Thank you for the letter. Thank you for the camera. Thank you for God." "Hey," I said gently, "you don't have to thank me for everything. I came because I wanted to." We stayed for 2 hours, ate cake, watched Caitlin open presents, including the Leica, which made her cry again. I showed her some photos I'd taken in Pine Ridge, and we talked about composition and light like we used to. Amy fit into the group easily, making Caitlin's friends laugh, talking to Elena about therapy with the casual expertise of someone who'd done her own work. When it was time to leave, Caitlin walked us to the car. "Are you happy?" she asked. "In Pine Ridge?" "I'm getting there," I said. "Some days are harder than others. But yeah, I'm building something good." "I'm glad." She looked at Amy. "Take care of him. He acts like he doesn't need taking care of, but he does." Amy smiled. "I know. And he takes care of me, too. That's how it's supposed to work." Caitlin nodded. Then she looked at me. "I'm sorry I called my dad. My real dad. You were the real one all along." "You can have more than one real dad," I said. "But thank you for saying that." "Will I see you again?" "Maybe. But Caitlin, I need you to understand something. I care about you. I always will. But I can't be in your life the way I was before. That door is closed. We can be something else, something healthier, but we can't go back." "I understand," she said. "I just needed to see you one more time. To know you were okay. To know I didn't destroy you." "You didn't destroy me. You helped me figure out who I was." On the drive back to Pine Ridge, Amy asked, "How do you feel?" "Lighter," I said. "Like I closed a chapter I'd left open." "Any regrets?" "About leaving? No. About going back today? No. About what happened in between. I thought about it. Some. But I'm learning to live with them." When we got home and Pine Ridge was home now, fully and completely, I took the box from my closet, the evidence, the letters, the documentation of everything that had happened. I looked at it one last time. Then I drove to the town dump and threw it away. Not in anger, not in bitterness, just in acceptance. That story was over. This one, the one where I lived in a small town with a woman who chose me first, where I sold screws and went to gazebo debates and photographed tree bark, this one was just beginning. And it was enough, more than enough. It was mine.